I'd like to recognize that Chelmsford Telemedia is recording and broadcasting this meeting live tonight. And is there anybody else here that's recording? Seeing none. We'll start our meeting like we'll start all our meetings with public input if there's anybody that has anything that they wanted to say or express. And there'll also be opportunities to talk throughout the meeting as well. Seeing none. For folks watching at home, I just wanted to let everyone know that all the meeting documents that we'll be reviewing tonight can be found at robertsfield.org under the specific heading for this meeting, the June 8th meeting. So if what you see here on the screen that we're talking about, you can actually follow along at home and as we cover that. Our first meeting agenda was to approve the meeting minutes from our May 16th meeting. I think Alice sent all of those meeting minutes out. Did anybody have any comments or changes to those?
No.
I'd entertain a motion to approve those minutes. All those in favor? Aye. The first item, meaty item on our agenda is a review of a email of information that I received from the Chelmsford Community Band. We had provided them with some questions from our last couple of meetings, and they've responded with some very helpful information. First off, we asked about the performance schedule. Basically, what they're proposing to do is to move their summer series of concerts, which is roughly six concerts, to the new bandstand. They would still maintain two concerts, the Independence Day concerts at the Chelmsford Common, but they would move their summer series to the bandstand. It would run July through the middle of August, and it would take place on Tuesday evenings and run till about 8:30 or so, from 7 o'clock to about 8:30 or so. So it would be finished before nighttime. And like I said, they're basically looking for a new home for the summer series. And Dave Tweed is the contact that I've been working with there, and he had said he was going to be here, but he's just not here at the meeting yet. So we'll have an opportunity to speak with him probably at some point. I asked them specifically about sound levels to give, I know we had questions, some of the neighbors had questions about how loud are these concerts actually going to be. They haven't measured their performances in the past, but anecdotally what they said was that their sound levels were nowhere near those of an over-amplified rock band. And I'll show you a graphic that I have that it's a scale of different noise levels, and that's kind of what it was referring to. Let me go ahead and show you that now. So you can see the outdoor rock concert is right in this area. So what they're saying is that the band would actually be somewhere in here. The noise levels would be somewhere in here. And I actually have had a conversation with the Chelmsford Board of Health, and they're amenable to us doing call it a noise study. So we can, they have the ability to measure sound, right? And so they'll work with us, and we can measure the July 3rd and 4th concerts that they're putting on in the center. So then we can come back and give the neighbors exactly a good idea of what the sound levels would be. Also, we would be able to take measurements of the playground and also of baseball and lacrosse games too, if we can get the measurement program going while the season's still in place. So I think that'd be a good way. That was one of the things I think that was missing from the plan, from our discussion, was what exactly are the noise levels, and I think that'll give us a good baseline at least for setting expectations. And I'll work directly with them if there's anybody that has any interest in helping with that project to measure the noise levels. Please let me know, Barry. We talked about, in the past, wanting to keep the bandstand, the design of it open, so there wouldn't be any visual obstructions from the road, so no walls, and wanted to see how they felt about that, and they were fine with There not being walls or any sort of sound reflectors in the back of the bandstand. But they said that if they did decide that they thought that they would be helpful, that they would take responsibility for that, both in bringing them there and getting them out. So it would be transportable in some sense. Let's see, we talked about the sound levels. I also asked just in advance if the larger bandstand is not part of the final plan, would they still want to use the smaller bandstand, which I think we sized for their 15-piece jazz ensemble, if they'd be interested in using that. And his response here is that they would rather use just the one, so I don't think that they're interested in using the smaller stand for the jazz ensemble. Any questions, Chris?
Is there another page? Did we ask him about location again?
We asked about storage, David said that storage is really the key issue for them. They're open to the idea of partitioning off the DPW garage, so we'd add partitions so that there's the outside door that they could have access to their own little storage area. And that seemed to be something that they were amenable to, but they had questions about protection from freezing, excessive dust, and moisture, which I don't expect that the partitions would have a roof, and I don't expect that the garage is going to be heated. So freezing is going to be as cold as it is in the garage. So that's something that I'd hope to get some feedback from Dave on. And then dust, I don't know how dusty the garage is. It didn't seem like it was a dusty place, and it's pretty much closed all the time, so I don't see that as being a problem. And the same with moisture. And your question about the location.
The location, because we had asked that they were going to trek their stuff all the way across the field, and looking at the plan, it did seem like an awful large structure to go where we were going to put it, next to the playground, and I think we all started saying, well, it's still, even with the sun, can we move it back to the other side?
Right.
To put it closer to the garage and tilt it somehow, some way that you don't have to have that large structure by the...
I hope Dave would be here to answer that, but the communications that I've had with him, it sounds like they're pretty set on that northwestern corner, that because of the sun, and then positioning to amplify into the interior of the park. It sounds like that's something that they want. And actually, Barry and I went out and just set up some cones to kind of take a look at sort of where it would physically be, and we'll share those pictures with you in a bit so you can see. I think it'll help to kind of put it into context. Any questions on this slide?
So is it okay if the storage that's available is only during the concert series? Because, like you say, there's no protection from frost.
They were looking for, he had said that if it's year-round, it's attractive to them. So they're looking for the year-round storage, and I think that if we go to the expense of building the partition walls, I would expect that they would use it year-round. I don't know how, and that's why I was hoping they'd be here, but I don't know how freezing is going to really affect them. You know, because I don't know what they're going to be
Drums
storing.
or something? I don't know, like the
I don't know if they're storing
sensitive
instruments
things?
there, or if
Yeah.
it's just chairs, you know?
Okay, sure, that would, yeah.
But
I would imagine it's the instruments, and anything with wood in it, anything brass can rust.
right.
I've played the drums in freezing weather. I have not had it freeze first. But that's made out of skin, so I don't think that's particularly as vulnerable as the metal parts.
Right. Well, the thing is, though, is that they're using kind of a pod, you know, like a little standalone storage unit now, so that can't be heated. And, you know, it's got a roof, but so does the garage, so.
But it is insulated from the ground because it's a step up, so there's space underneath.
Right.
And concrete holds temperature either way really well.
Right.
Maybe they could just put down some platforms or something.
Yeah, I don't, I guess I hope they'd been here to.
Yeah,
to
let's
answer this
table,
Maybe
question.
they'll come in a
it
bit.
till they, see if they come. and then-
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, 'cause
We'd asked them specifically about maintenance, and we hadn't really outlined anything, to be fair, but they were at least amenable to cleaning up and taking care of their mess when they're done, right? So that's good, and getting stuff put back and getting it back, getting the tables back into place. And frankly, I don't know that there's really going to be that much maintenance to it that they would need to be responsible for. I mean, it's stuff like roofs and stuff like that, it's going to be within the DPW's purview anyway, so. And then regarding fundraising, they weren't and aren't open to putting together and running a fundraiser, but they're willing to play at a fundraiser. And I'd hope to get some more information about that as well. But at least that they're willing to put some skin in the game on showing up and playing. And this was, that was it. So is there any questions for the community band? Anybody? No? And then we'd had some questions for baseball.
Yeah,
Bill's not
let's
here
skip.
yet, so we'll come back to that. Chelmsford Youth Lacrosse, Jim Dalton was going to be here. He had to drop off his son. He'll be here later. If you want, we can skip this part and come back to it as well. We'll get into the playground discussion. Kate, I know you reached out to Premier Park and Play. Did you want to cover off on this information?
Sure. We had just asked them a couple questions in regards to if we were heading in the right direction. I think one of the big things that they pointed on was maybe that the size of the playground seemed a little bit large. But I think if we had given them a little bit more information, that it wasn't just going to be structures, there'd be like a natural area, maybe a sand area. So he said that was a little bit larger than he thought. And then also the cost came in a little bit high, so we scaled down the cost a little bit as well.
Okay.
And then he had some concerns, like just about the materials, a couple different ideas, as he said, like the rubber surfacing. He gave us a couple quotes and stuff. But it was more in general, and he's not too familiar with our project, but just kind of pointing us in the right direction.
Okay. So it sounded like his feedback was pretty much that the costs were in the ballpark that we had, estimate-wise. I know he pointed out that the community build information was out of whack, and that was because I had misunderstood how that sort of worked, and I made that adjustment. So just so everyone knows, the community build aspect is that we'll save some money on the actual installation, but that money then gets turned back into playground structures. So it's more of a value proposition than an actual expenditure. And there's still money spent for supervision of the community build that goes into that budget. And then they also asked a question, which I think is a good question, is if we'll be hiring or allocating funds for a landscape architect to make sure all of this, the play structures and the natural play structures sort of work together and flow together. My assumption was that was going to be part of the bid, that the playground manufacturer that would be bidding would include that design of those two parts in the thing. I don't know how you guys felt about that, if that was your impression as well.
My
no
impression
idea.
as well.
That was mine
Okay.
as well.
Because we could add in a budget for landscape architect if we feel like we need to, but at least from what I thought was that was included.
I'd rather go high on the playground and push them to design.
Okay. And then one other thing that he brought up was that we hadn't talked about pathways or hadn't budgeted for pathways inside the playground, and I think we had mentioned it, and I think that we probably want to. So I added in into the budget permeable paths, just a cost. I just pretty much took a north to south and east to west distance, just to give us a budget figure to put the pathways in. I guess the decision will need to be made if we want to budget for permeable path, which is like $8 a linear foot, or brick, or some other higher cost.
Well, I had thought most of the paths within the playground were going to be the weatherized rubber.
Poured rubber, yeah.
The poured rubber, because we wanted to stay as a smooth surface for those who need it. And I think in terms of our idea of flow, that we're not talking about straight paths. We're talking about things that will meander, or maybe wrap around one structure and then have a branch that goes over to what's more naturalistic as opposed to the climbing structure. And so that would raise, obviously, the cost. But if we make most of the surface of the structure area as that rubber surface, then it truly is accessible. And then we find a way of bridging it to, path down into some of the more natural areas. Or we just use the rubberized stuff for the path.
Okay, so specifically for the pathways, do you want to budget for, how does the committee feel? Do you want to budget for, what material do you want to use? I think the poured-in-place rubber is about $15 to $20 a linear foot and or square foot. And the permeable path is about $8. Asphalt, I think, is like $13, so.
I would vote against asphalt, but honestly, I think that falls under the design criteria. I think we want paths, we want them to flow through, like you're saying.
Right.
I don't think we're experts enough to say the path has to be this versus this, because I don't think we know, it's gonna be a cost thing at the end of the day, because we can't do rubber surface for the whole area, it's huge.
I agree, but from a budgeting standpoint, so if we, do we budget high? Do we say that we want to do the poured-in-place rubber pathways because they're more expensive and it gives us that
Gives us
padding?
that flow, we don't even know, yeah, I guess we could do that, but we just don't even know the area, until you design the playground, you don't know where the pathways are gonna be, so I think we figure out a square footage estimate of what the rubber poured in place is based on the $15 to $20,
So
and
we
then go with
we
that.
use poured-in-place instead of permeable for the
Well,
budget.
For the budget,
could you
probably,
define
yeah.
permeable, please? I'm not sure what that,
Stone dust, I think, is what it is. I don't know for sure, but,
there is actually a permeable concrete
okay.
that would,
We don't-
no, that one I think winds up being more expensive than the poured rubber. But there is a surface that I know that it's hard enough that people can park on it, but that still grows grass through it. And I'm not sure if that's something we would want for the path but it is much less expensive.
Okay. I guess, just from a budgeting standpoint, though, I think it sounds like we'd want to
Go high.
go high and then
Yeah.
use the poured in place for just a budgeting. Is that?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes, unless we see our number and we realize that we're just so far off on.
But we definitely want to include
Yes.
pathways in the budget,
Yes, we do.
right?
Definitely want pathways.
At least, have enough of the poured rubber for access to the structures.
Just getting from the parking lot into like,
No, when you're when you're in the playground to get to a ramp, let's say, and then from another, like,
just more within the playground.
Yes.
within, yeah.
I mean, I guess the poured rubber stuff, and
Just-
this may be too much detail right
It
now,
is.
but I think that stuff is usually used to underneath things that kids can fall on. I don't know if it's necessarily used for pathways, because the life expectancy I know is 10 years, and it has to
Yes,
be
in the
resealed.
winter.
Yeah, I think it's guaranteed for 8, and it has to be resealed every other year. So for a pathway per se, that might not be. I don't know. That may be the right thing. It may be the wrong thing. I don't know for sure. But
It depends on, frankly, our commitment to it being, and I'm blanking on the phrase, but the universal access or universal design kind of thing. We
Okay.
want the playgrounds that rate highest under universal design are poured rubber from corner to corner.
One solid,
yeah.
one solid mass.
I'm
Right.
just doing the
No,
math,
no.
just so we're playing with this here, I just checked. We're .9 acres right now is the playground, right?
Right.
I just did square footage of an acre times a .3 acres, let's say that's our playground area, times 20, that's $261,000
Just
worth
for-
of poured rubber.
Every
Yeah.
10 years.
So we have to, every 10 years, so we really have to
Right.
Yeah.
be reasonable in what we're,
Yeah, and we can get into the detail for the budget. I set a 1,200 square foot poured in place rubber section just for the budget, which would probably buy us one or two
Areas under, yep.
under surfaces for things. But then it's just a matter of connecting those.
Yep.
Right? And then the other stuff would either be synthetic, or not synthetic, but wood chips or some other surface.
dust. And as
Yeah.
long as it's not a trip hazard, I think it doesn't matter. You can get on a wheelchair on it, you can get accessible on it, and it's not a trip hazard. That's
Right.
where we care.
I was thinking a lot of lawn, actually.
Well, so, to go with the lawn, are you gonna have mine in there too? or- The lawn question that came up with the rolling hills idea and things like that, the person I talked with did say that that is a trend, people are doing it. I said, how's maintenance? And she said there has to be buy-in from, from DPW or whoever's gonna take care of it.
Right.
Because there is a huge amount of maintenance need to it and there, and she said the other thing that she has seen is that they tend to cage that, or somehow partition that area off somewhat, so that when it needs maintenance, it can be closed, either be mowed or to be reseeded and left alone. She said if you don't have the commitment, you just end up with a mud pile.
Okay.
So they did caution on the idea. She said it is a great idea, people love it, and it's nice to, without a lot of structure and money, but you have to design it in a way that it's either gated and it can be
Okay.
opened and closed, or there's a lot of attention, please, to maintenance and upkeep.
And I know Premier Park and Play said that the grass surface shouldn't be considered for anything with height.
Yep.
So it won't, you can't fall onto it safely.
Great.
But running, I guess, is a different
Yep.
issue. And then we haven't really gotten ADA considerations, or at least the language of the ADA considerations into the plan, so.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. So if that's something that you can maybe go through the plan and add in where you feel like it's missing, because you seem to have that, have a corner on that? No?
It's a lot of, I have to go find the source of the actual language and not interpretation. So that means going into the federal code and finding the exact,
Not necessarily detail, I just mean, just in general, just, like, when we get to the presentations, you can see it, but, just to say that, there should be ADA compliance here, on this
okay.
pathway, and, or in the playground, or just wherever it's missing.
Okay.
I think that's what they were saying, is that we haven't really addressed that in the plan.
okay. That I can do.
Any other questions on Premier Park and Play? And these were just some of the follow-up questions that we had. We've addressed the grass not being a good surface. They did say that they felt like that the acre of playground was probably too large, or at least larger than they're used to dealing with. So I think that's something we need to talk about. And then that 1,200 square foot of rubber for the entire playground wouldn't make sense, but you would want to, pick out certain features. This was your,
Yep.
this was your presentation. So you got in touch with someone that had put together some information for the previous chair,
Previous chair, yeah, let me get it.
and
Do you have a name on there or no?
it was there were a few different slides and pictures, but generally it was this. It looks like they put together a cost estimate for about a third of an acre, which is the current footprint of the playground. The total cost that they put together for this particular structure was $308,000. That included $218,000 in equipment, 680 cubic yards of mulch, or $21,000. So this was all mulch. There was no board in place in this. It had the community build supervision fees, which were at about $66,000, and then just the freight of shipping and everything was about $15,000. So when I look at this, this collection of costs and compare to kind of where we are, it's close, but the thing that I'm concerned about is that our playground structure cost is I think between 225 and 250. So I think when we get to that discussion, I think we should talk about maybe wanting to increase that that budget, just because I don't want to present something that's too short that we can't afford.
I agree,
down the road.
but if you look at the picture, and I'll speak to, there was one thing I don't think is in here, is that we did want ramps, and she
Right.
did mention that ramps added about a 30% cost to the equipment. So the 218 number on that side is gonna be low because the ramps, she also said it added a ton of area, but we don't really care about that, we have a lot of area, as long as we can afford to build underneath it. But I don't know if everybody can see the picture well, but I don't know we need more equipment than this. If you look at what's there, we're gonna space it differently, we're gonna use it differently, but this is kind of what we were looking at, was one large play structure, one toddler structure, a couple of small
So you've got a
things.
toddler area in the
Yeah, we would
upper
design
corner.
it much differently, I think, yeah, perfect. I think we would design it much differently now that knowing the space and the trees and all that stuff. But these kind of toddler stuff, swings, large play area that has that universal feel to it, because this was all stand-up stuff when you zoom in on the pictures, and there was some other cool things. There was the zip line included in this that somebody else had brought up before, and that swing that is over at East. It's a standalone swing like that. So I'm not saying that this is what we asked for, I'm just saying that this is a good, I think, representation of the amount of equipment. Their idea was, we're just gonna clear the land, flatten the land,
Yeah.
and put it in there, and that's not what we're looking for. But the idea of the equipment, I don't think we're too far off. So if we went up on that sum, like you said,
No, we would need more
we're there,
swing.
but I think our biggest problem right now is our underneath, is where we're off
the
our number.
surfaces?
Is our surfaces and our landscaping and how we plan it is where our number's off. I think the equipment number isn't too far off. If you go up by 40K on the low side and then your higher side from there.
Okay.
to Like 260 maybe to whatever.
Right.
You said you were 225 before, I think you said.
Yeah, but the problem is that the structure cost that I have in the budget includes the community build supervision as
Oh, okay.
well. So
that's where you're off.
really, all of this stuff is in that number.
Yeah.
So it's really 308 for this compared really to 225.
Yeah, so the only thing coming out is the 21K of the mulch out of that 308 is their number.
And then in the budget, I've added back in the poured-in-place rubber and now the pathways and things like that. So which would be extra to this. Plus, we're going to want to do some sort of a digging area, sand pit. kind
Yep,
of
yeah,
a thing.
definitely, yeah.
So I think this is excellent. This is a great help, I think, for our budgeting. But I think that
Tells us we're a little off.
I think we're a little low,
Okay.
unfortunately.
So, can I ask a question on this? I think Del presented, I think you called it the natural, it was basically the universal kind of playground. And if I remember, that had little rocks and basically natural structures more than these. How does that fit with these? Are we still planning to go in that direction?
I think that's the theme of the equipment that you buy versus just the, I don't know that this piece of equipment, like, we're not saying we want this piece of equipment, but I think that's a
Right,
theme.
right.
But the universal sites, this was when I asked her, she said this was considered the more of a universal playground, the structure was, because it had both stand-up, but the one thing it doesn't have that she would have to add in is the accessibility part, the ramp and the other side there.
And when I'd spoken about the naturalized playground, we foresaw a mix, because the kids are going to want to climb high, and they should. There should be as much physical exertion as possible for those who can. So it would be a kind of mix, and I was actually thinking of the sections being almost separate. And not quite sure how to do that, but perhaps on either side of the more formal structures have some of the more naturalized stuff as a kind of border, and transition area.
Right. And I just want to clarify too, I think a universal design means that it's universally available to anyone. So, it could be it could be available to a toddler, to a senior, to a person in a wheelchair, so I think those universal things are different than the natural playground structures, just to say that those are two different things. So the natural is more of a theme and the universal is more of the accessibility of it.
So what I'm hearing is you think you'd like a combination of the natural and something that's more traditional.
Yes.
But obviously, they both have to be universal.
That's the goal.
I think what we're moving towards is that we're going to have this list of, these are our expectations for what we want to see, and then that gets put into the bid, and then the bid goes to the playground manufacturer, and then they come back with the plan. Any questions on any of this slide? Did you have any other comments from?
No, that's where I have, to date on that, so.
Okay. A couple of questions. One of the gaps I feel like we have in the plan is usage. People have asked, how is usage going to be affected at the park? Specifically, how is the usage going to be affected at the playground? I had a conversation with Chief Spinney and Lieutenant Colin Spence, and they're willing to put a traffic counter, those things that you run over that counts the cars, at the entry to the parking lot for a 7-day period, or possibly 14-day period if we need that much. I think 7 would probably suffice. And they'll measure how, the traffic, so we'll be able to report back at least, how many cars are going into the playground, and then when they're going there, and when the high times are, when the low times are, and that kind of a thing. So I think that'll help us to say at least what the usage numbers are for the entire park and kind of extrapolate back to the playground. But I think we could also do, if we can find volunteers or find someone who wants to head it up, do a informal survey of the playground usage. I was thinking maybe like with the Chelmsford Mothers Club, or find people that are at the park anyway, and basically just have them count people and kids that are coming in and estimate what.
I'm laughing, I don't want to be the creepy guy at the park staring at people coming.
I don't think it would be us with a clipboard. I'm thinking maybe that's why I was saying maybe if we approach the Chelmsford Mothers Club or someone who goes to the park a lot, maybe they'd be, and say, okay, just if you're there, or even maybe have a self-reporting thing that we could post on the board.
I mean, what are we looking for? I think, a realistic estimate, we're looking to give to neighbors and things like that, but a realistic estimate is if we build something nice, it's gonna go up, the percentage, it's gonna go up by some percentage, is the thinking.
Right.
But we really don't know the percentage per se, so even if we know the number of who uses it now, it may not matter, it may help for the parking lot.
Right, which
but
is the
that's
big
about
question.
it.
Is it worthwhile? So that's really the big question. That's why I wanted to gauge you guys' interest and see, is it a worthwhile endeavor? Because it will be sort of labor intensive, and we'll have to find somebody to really manage it.
I'm against it because I think it's only gonna give us news we don't wanna know, which would be, oh no, we need the parking lots more, and none of us wanna build more of a parking lot or anything like that, so I would say that.
Well, no, are you talking about the playground survey, or
Just
talking
the
about
usage, like if we see, oh yeah, the peak usage is here and we have to go up a percentage.
So are you talking about the measurement of the traffic counter too?
Yeah, or the usage in general, either way.
The traffic counter tells us not only who comes to use the playground.
But also all the baseball fields and all the rest of the stuff, yeah.
So it's all the
Which is a
clubs
question that the neighbors have asked, so I feel sort of an obligation to
Okay, if
answer
they
that
wanna know, then
question.
that's fine.
But that's a different question than a playground usage survey.
Correct.
And I know, I've seen discussion on the Chelmsford Facebook site about how some people don't want to bring their kids to the park anymore because of the whole bit with the wasps' nests and things, and they're feeling a little tender.
Okay. So, it sounds like then, how do you guys feel? Is doing a playground survey something that you would think would be a good use of time and effort? Or do you feel like that's not going to really give us any more information that can really be useful?
I think the passive measurement by the police tape is probably sufficient. Yeah, yeah. Because if you think about what decisions would be affected by somebody standing there or monitoring actual numbers of people in the playground? Is there something that would be useful coming out of that information? And if there is, then do
I can
it.
offer you one answer to that. I don't know if it's the right one, but if you have an idea what your numbers are now, and you have a little sense that improvement is probably going to increase them, it can help justify the expense. So if you're going for down and you're talking about 200,000 versus 500,000
Okay.
playground,
Yep.
they're going to want to come back and say, well, I don't want to spend this kind of money if you don't have enough audience to take advantage of it. So that's where you.
Okay.
That could- That would make sense.
The other thing that would give you too is an indication of if at least the current users, if it's more skewed towards younger kids than older kids. You know what I mean? It would give you an idea of who's currently using it. But I don't know if that information would really be helpful in moving forward, because we're going to want to say we want to target a mix of ages and groups. David?
We'll just have a comment. First, definitely Roberts Field is very seasonal. Right now, you're at a peak period.
Right.
In fact, the previous couple of weeks were probably the highest peak. So if you did a counter, you would see a lot more traffic.
Correct.
We definitely see in the late summer, it really, really tails off for people who use the fields, and it becomes primarily people using the playground. Would you agree? In terms of what we observe from our home, it's mostly younger kids who use the playground at Friendship Park right now because of the way it's designed. For example, the view that you put up earlier, I do see that attracting an older audience, especially if a zip line or something else. And so that would definitely change the usage as well.
Right.
Those are just our casual observations.
Yeah, I agree. I was just there and it was T-balls there right now, and so you have a T-ball game and it's just mobbed with
Yeah.
5-year-olds.
Yeah.
Would you see any benefit as a neighbor in trying to kind of answer these questions about usage? Would you see any benefit in I guess, a number of the composition now? Would it be helpful to you at all? No? Okay. How do you feel about,
We're justifying the expense, though.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sure.
how do you feel about the traffic counter for the parking lot? That would give you at least a number to have in your mind for the number of cars and people that are kind of coming through during a peak period.
It would be a peak period for
Well,
how the park is now, but if we're talking about improving the playground and then adding a community band concert series, the data becomes increasingly irrelevant.
It gives you a baseline, right? And then would be additional to that, right?
depending on whether they just reminded me of something really important, though, depending on when you put the strip out, it does change a lot, because I know T-ball, we play there twice a week.
Right.
But Saturday is our last game there, and then the following Saturday is the skills day. So the usage is gonna already start to drop down, and I think the older kids will drop down in 2 weeks when they do the same thing, so it is gonna start already to tail off. So if he doesn't put it out for a couple weeks, we won't even see
Well, and
that.
I wanted to first get Bill's permission from baseball to be able to even monitor that, both the traffic counts as well as the noise levels too, that we talked about monitoring for baseball games. So if he gave me a schedule of, this is kind of what our season is, ended up looking like, we could sort of work around that and then identify those things with the numbers, right? And then we could, if we had the baseline, then we could always come back during other periods of the year and do the same study. So we could do, if we wanted to update the master plan later, to show the seasonality of it as well. We've already talked about the interior playground path that we want to include, and I heard that we wanted to use the poured-in-place rubber for the budget. So any other comments or questions about? Okay, so that was it for the playground. So a few quick updates. At the last meeting, we talked about the Town and Country Store. I spoke with the real estate agent, and that sale that we had talked about before, that purchase and sale agreement had fallen through, so it's back on the market. He's actively marketing it. And I discussed the idea that we had talked about of putting the covered bridge over the New England covered bridge style thing over the bridge, and he seemed to be really excited about that. Very excited about the changes to the park, and felt like all the things that we've been talking about would be of real benefit to a new owner, which I think it's kind of makes sense. And he said he would keep in touch with us if anything changes. Any questions about that?
She had a question.
I'm sorry. All right.
The agent's response, was that reflecting the current owner's response, or just the agent personally was excited?
Agent was excited.
Just the agent, because there was no current owner. The purchase and sale agreement that we had talked about a couple of meetings back had fallen through. So it was back on the market, and he was just expressing his feelings about the things that we were talking about, and extrapolating out to how he felt that a potential buyer and store runner would feel about it as well. I met with.
One more
Sorry. Sorry.
One thing, I haven't used, I've been there during the fall season a few years, but there seems to be an awful lot of competition for that little store if the ice cream truck keeps showing up, since I would imagine that on a hot day, that would have been half or three-quarters of their business during those hours. And has there been any consideration to that? I mean, I don't really know how you're going to get someone into that store if you keep selling out their business.
Public parking lot, I don't think we could tell the ice cream truck not to show up.
I don't know what rules are, but I can find out on that one.
Yeah, I don't know. It's been there. I know when we used to take our son to T-ball and stuff there, that those trucks would show up
It's
as well.
always been there.
Yeah,
and, you know,
I think the store actually closed early, which was kind of weird, but so I don't know. It's a good question. And we had talked about the potential of having sort of food trucks there as well, having kind of a food truck event there potentially. That was just something we had talked about in a few meetings back. So that would be something we'd want to talk obviously about with.
Yeah, but that would be one day
Yeah.
of the
Correct,
year versus.
But it would cut directly into their hot dog sales. So.
Well, one of the things I'd be concerned about is, in terms of the Realtor, is the expectation that all this is going to happen, and then someone buys, puts it together, and they open right when we're shutting down the playground for 3 months of construction.
That's why I think it's important that we keep a good open line of communication between the committee and the potential owners or the real estate agent, right? So they know what's going on.
And with a great deal of clarity.
Right. Any other comments or questions? We had talked about, Weston had offered to put together plans for us for the natural areas of the park, the gardens and such. And so I met with Terry of Weston Nurseries, and he gave us some budget items for the budget, estimates for the budget. And so he gave us cost for the sound mitigation, visual mitigation along the outside of the playground, rain guard, 2 rain gardens, 4 gardens, a meditation labyrinth. At least he gave me the plant cost, and I've been trying to get the stone cost for that. And then a landscaping idea plan for the guardrail and upper and lower parking lot, green space between the upper and lower parking lots. Their recommendation for the soundscaping, at least from a budget standpoint, and his point was that this could be taken up again and fine-tuned later, but just from a budgeting standpoint, he recommended deer-resistant arborvitae. Specifically, the Thula Green Giant he said was a good choice, and his recommendation would be that they would sort of mix and match taller trees in the more open areas, and then put some of the smaller trees in where the gaps aren't quite as big. So that got added into the budget. For the green space between the parking lot, upper and lower parking lots, this was an idea that we talked about earlier that kind of got pushed back, but Terry, this was his recommendation, was that we could use a roadside perennial mix for that sloped area. He felt like that would be a perfect thing for it. It basically would be hydroseeded, and then it would get an annual mowing. So the maintenance, it would be low to no maintenance, basically, which is what happens now. It just kind of grows grass and green stuff there now.
Right, but it would need 2 annual mowings.
One. So just the one.
To my knowledge, you have to mow it at one point, once it gets to be about 1 foot to 18 inches, or you're not going to get flowers. And then you mow it at the end of the year.
So what Terry shared with me was that the first year would be mostly greens and grasses, that the perennials wouldn't flower the first year, but then the flowers would start coming in the second. He didn't mention the 2 mowings. He specifically said that it would just take one end of year annual mowing.
Okay.
But that's, something that we can address.
That is a great idea.
But I think it fits, it certainly fits with the rest of the park, the pollinator park and other things that we're doing there. It's very consistent with what we're doing in the flowering meadow over in the pollinator park. And it would, to have a big open bank of a variety of different perennial flowers would certainly, I think, help the curb appeal of the park as well. And we could identify, I added into the budget 2 just sort of smaller signs that would identify it as either a flowering meadow or a certified wildlife habitat or a certified pollinator something or other, something that would tell people that this was not just a, big messy thing, that this is actually a managed habitat. And, the other thing is that it would be really beneficial to the pollinators in the neighborhood.
I do have one question about the height and whether that's going to affect the visual sightlines for the police.
It's all 2 to 3 feet high stuff. There's shrubs and things mixed into the seed mix, but because of the annual mowing, they don't get established. And this is a roadside mix that's put together by New England Wetland. It's called New England Wetland something. But they use this mix obviously on roadsides and things like that. And it's a perfect application for the sloped area because there's actually starting to be some erosion there now, and this would kind of help with that.
But it won't grow so tall that it's going to affect sightlines for the police?
Correct.
Okay.
And that's in the plant selection, that's in the seed mix.
Okay.
Any questions on that part? The meditation labyrinth, like I said, he gave me a cost for just the plants, and that's sort of a circular walking meditation path. We would still need to either get the DPW to commit to providing the stones or find someone who can give us a cost for that. And he also mentioned that we should consider when we lay out the walking paths that we should, he said that it would add more of a dramatic effect if we routed the pathways actually through a garden, either with a bridge or a stone walkway or something that would sort of add a little bit of dramaticness to the pathways. So all these costs have been added into the budget. Any questions or comments? Any comments, David or Amanda, about the sound visual budget? No? Okay. Pond fountains, you had talked about pond fountains. I contacted the pond guy, and based on a Google map, they suggested that the pond size needed to have 2 fountains. So I've included the cost of that, which is $6,500. There's 2 different fountains because one fountain is further away from the power source, so it had to have a different voltage, and that one ended up costing more, but at least from a budgeting standpoint, we have the cost. The thing about the pond fountains is that they require at least 19 to 20 inches of depth, which the pond absolutely does not have. We have more like 6 to 8 inches of depth probably. Steve did get back to me with a cost estimate for dredging. So the cost estimate for dredging and permitting is roughly $100,000 to $130,000.
I thought we were going to use residential ones because, as opposed to a professional system. Because,
I didn't get that. I didn't hear that.
I don't recall that. I don't specifically recall that we discussed residential because of the limitations or the
We
requirements of
didn't
anything.
discuss it, but there was someone in the community who said, you know, you throw in a little $100 fountain. And so that's what I thought we were talking about, not a multi-thousand.
I didn't hear that, but I think, given that, I think we would still run across the same issues with pond depth, even with a cheaper fountain. And I think even with a cheaper fountain, you're gonna have a lot more issues because it's gonna get bogged down and full of sediment, and it's gonna have to be maintained a lot more. I think, I've added the pond fountains and the dredging into the budget, right? But I don't think we could put the fountains in unless we do the dredging. So it's kind of all tied in together. And then I think we really need to kind of get feedback from the selectmen and from the community on if they feel like that's a doable expense. But we have the data, we have the cost, and we can move forward from that.
Bill, can I throw in a comment?
Yes.
I think you need to challenge having two of these. Just reflecting, I've looked at a number of places that have had ponds and fountains. I was just at a place today that had pretty good sized ponds, and they're at least as big as this field, and they had a single fountain. So, my concern is that whoever told you that might have tried to oversell, and that could undermine credibility, in terms of the budget.
I'm good with that. Do you want me to back this down to just one fountain?
Yeah.
I'm not worried about the fountain cost, I'm worried
Yeah.
about the $100,000
Right.
to dredge it and
Yeah.
so budgeted,
I think we just leave it as it is, at least for now, just from a budgeting standpoint. But I agree. When I looked at it, I felt like it might be too much as well.
I mean, I'm not saying cut it down, I'm saying get another opinion. Just because you might get challenged, it could be embarrassing if it turns out that, whoever told you that, this is selling you too much.
Okay. Do you guys have any thoughts or comments about that? Just kind of
So what we're trying to achieve with the fountain is just aerating the water? What are we achieving with the fountain?
Was my goal.
So there's two. One is aeration, and the improves the health of the pond, and the other is really aesthetics, right? There's two ways to aerate. One is bubble tubing, which is literally tubes with holes in it that pumps bubbles out into the thing, and that's a very efficient way of aerating the pond. And you can actually, it can be a little shallower as well, but they're significantly more expensive in cost, hardware cost. And then there's the fountain cost. The fountains, that's the other option. So, and like I said, I didn't go into a lot of detail with the pond guy, but this is kind of where they netted out on their recommendation.
I hate to be the pessimist here, but in the grand scheme of things, why do we care if we have a healthy 4-inch pond versus a not healthy 4-inch deep pond or 8-inch deep pond? We're not going to get fish in the pond. It's not the depth. Even if we dredge it, I mean,
It controls odor and the kind of
Yeah.
plants that grow around it.
yeah. Is that what we're looking for?
I don't really know what I'm talking about with this stuff, but I've heard that if the pond does get too far out of control, you can get a lot of algae slime, and it can be kind of ugly. But then again, I don't know how long the pond is stayed the way it is, and it's like different
yeah.
times of the year, so it's a trade-off. But that,
One of the things is that it's deep enough so that it'll freeze, so that people can skate on it in the winter. That's one consideration. The other is just the healthiness of the pond is going to directly affect the healthiness of the habitat and the area around it. Is that?
But this is more of a wetlands area. I mean, that would be very true, but I mean, there's a lot of water in the woods as well, and there's other things contributing to the health of that area versus just this pond, is what I'm wondering.
And it also addresses a lot of direct questions or comments about people saying they wanted to dredge it and make it deeper.
Yeah.
So there's people outside of the committee that are asking for it. I hear what you're saying. It's a lot of money to put towards something, but if it's a priority for the community,
Yep. I don't mind bringing it up to the public session and all that. I just worry if we don't get feedback that people want it, to put an extra $100,000 expense in our master plan and make the whole project seem that much more expensive just seems not the best use of our presentation, that's all.
I hear you, I agree.
Does the pond already have water in it now, or?
Oh, yeah.
It's-
It's full right now.
It does this year, but last year
Well, yeah,
it was
we're-
so dry that it was, there was grass in the middle, so.
Yeah. Well, so to that point, do the fountains get removed if it dries out again? I mean, obviously, we'd be dredging it, so it would be deeper and maybe it wouldn't dry out, but do the fountains get removed in the winter when it freezes?
They would need, I would think that the DPW would need to take them out, and they stay in the winter, but if you're gonna skate on it, you'd have to take them out.
Right,
so.
that's the point, yeah. Since it is, not if it is a skating pond, since it is a skating pond, we'd have to be talking about, people would need to get in there and put them in and remove them on an annual basis.
So it's an additional maintenance point, for sure.
Yeah.
Is that something the DPW has agreed to do?
We haven't talked to them about it. Hey, Laura.
I think part of the theme I've been hearing is that you're trying to get a naturalized theme, and I personally would prefer to see a naturalized pond as opposed to something with a man-made pump in the middle that just is a flow of what you're trying to go with. I think when I go walking in the woods, I like to see as few man-made anything as possible.
Okay.
I just like that all stripped out and as much natural allowed to go through. So I think that, it's very nice that the people, the property across the street in that lovely house has a fountain, but I don't think that you need to mimic that in the park.
You feel like it takes away from the naturalness of the pond? Okay.
Yeah, I think, you put all that work on the gardens around it, and I think that might kind of detract from all of that.
Okay.
Again, this all started with how do we get the water healthier and better aerated? And this is the direction it went.
Right.
So do you know the price point of the bubbler systems?
I do, I don't have them in the plan. I know that they were at least double the cost of the fountains. They were significantly more expensive.
Would it be acceptable?
Yes.
Would?
Yeah. Because, the pond itself, on the outer parts of it,
Yeah.
it's maybe 2-3 inches deep with a, 7 to 8 inch pack of sediment underneath. Dredging is really important, I think. Probably, definitely more important than the fountains, but. So do you guys want to keep, I'm sorry, is it Jim?
Yeah.
Hey, did you have a question or
Yeah, I was
comment?
just curious, did you guys already look at more native freshwater plants that would help the health of this pond?
We haven't talked about that. I don't know that it's really deep enough to support anything like that at this point. We're lucky because there's not a lot of, there's some invasive reeds and stuff that are in small parts of it now, but it's not, they haven't really taken over. So we're lucky in the sense that there's not a lot of invasives. But we haven't looked at adding any kind of plants to it.
For it to be a safe skating rink, does it need to be deeper?
That's a question that I've been trying to get answered for years. Does ice freeze faster and stay frozen faster, or stay frozen better if it's deeper or shallow?
Shallower.
How do you know?
It's physics, it's heat transfer.
But if there's less water and more heat in the sediment,
There's a fine line there because of how it's gonna melt, because really water, like there's 4 degrees Celsius is actually the densest, so it goes to the bottom and then the ice floats to the top. So having that water in between is gonna make it so your ice doesn't keep melting, and I think there is a trade-off, but I don't know what it is.
I haven't been able to answer that question. I don't know. I've had people tell me that it's better to have deeper water to have it to stay frozen better, and I've had people tell me that it's better to have it shallow. So I don't know. I don't know the answer to that question.
When I think of, everyone's backyard rink, it's pretty shallow.
Right. So moving forward, do you guys want me to keep the fountains in the budget? Do you want me to take one of the fountains off of it? Do you want me to take all of the fountains off of it?
I think it would be useful to have the price of the bubbler system as a comparison point.
Okay.
I mean, I don't-
In the budget, you want me to put the bubbler, the
Well-
bubble tubes in the budget?
well, the budget itself is going to be a range, right?
High to low, sure.
Yeah. So I think it's okay to include that as a
Okay.
higher end.
Can we, when we present or when we do the public input, can there be a, with the high to low range, be a, this is what we're considering needs to get done, and these 4 items are optional, and this would be the high-low range of those? So we could put this on that side of the world and just to distinguish people out, so they know it's not a take it or leave it kind of thing, that they don't, that they're not either saying yes to the whole project with the dredging, or, yeah, I don't know.
I was just going to say the advantage of what Chris has just suggested is if the budget gets too high, I don't know how this works with the town, I don't experience this, but if the budget gets too high, the risk goes up, you're going to be turned down, right?
Yeah, that's where I'm going.
And so you got to keep the numbers constrained with priorities, but this way, at least you'd have it in there saying, look, this would be really valuable, people want it, and here are the reasons. There's another 100,000, and then the town can.
Yeah.
Can you give them an option to say,
Yeah.
here's an 800,000 budget, but if you're willing to give us $1 million, we can do these other things.
Yeah.
I think it's a great idea, I just don't know
Yeah.
how to do it. If you're willing
Phase
to
two.
take a crack at it, or if,
Well, when we see the master plan, I could see if I could figure out how we can work it in, and
Okay.
put the budget in, that's fine. I can separate out numbers.
all right, so other than adding the bubble tubes, is there any other changes to this? No? Okay. I just wanted to put some images to the scavenger hunt idea that we've talked about. The top card thing is an example of something that we could put in different areas that people could actually scan with the QR code, and then this would tie back to some sort of a chart somewhere at one of our informational kiosks. And then we could be encouraging kids to do these types of things. I also wanted to point out that we could, you can purchase casts of different animal feed, and it's a couple $100s, it's really inexpensive. And then we could use that for either making imprints somewhere, for like an information board, so people could actually see them. We could do it on a pathway. There's a lot of stuff we could do with it, right?
Yeah.
And then just sort of a general idea of a logo that we could use. And then the informational kiosk. Any questions or comments about that?
No, that's great.
And we're lucky to have Miles Plunkett here today, who is a scout working on an Eagle Scout project for the park. And I'll let Miles take it from here.
All right, a couple handouts here.
Thank you very much.
The first one is the updates I have from the work I've done thus far for my project. And the second half is the agenda of what I plan to get into.
So will you talk a little bit about what you're doing, Miles?
So what my project is I am building multiple different animal habitats for the local wildlife for Robertsfield. So I believe I have the list of things I'm doing here. Along the stuff that you have, one of them is a map of Robertsfield with little icons for where I thought would be a good place to put each of the habitats, with little funny pictures on it. So what I'm building are 4 bat boxes, 3 mason bee boxes, 2 wood duck houses, 2 barred owl houses, 3 hawk houses, 3 bluebird houses, and 1 woodpecker house, with 3 informational kiosks as well. So if you look at the key, I know the bat symbols are a little hard to see, but those are general locations where I thought would be good locations for each. The ducks are a little more inwards than I thought. For the duck houses, they usually go between 10 to 30 feet from a water source, about like 10 feet high. Bat boxes can go at any height. Owl houses are around like 30 to 50 feet in the air. Ducks, like I said, are 10 to 20. Bluebirds, I was going to put those with the other ones that I believe are at Robertsfield. I thought it would just work well location-wise. The woodpecker house goes between 6 and 20 feet up. Hawk is 25 to 30 feet up, and the mason bee boxes are around ground level. So those are just general locations. I wanted your opinion on those. If any of those would contradict with other things you were doing, I wanted to make sure that didn't happen. And as you can see, I wanted to get your opinion on the design for the informational kiosk, which if you look at the thing, it looks more like something you'd see at a zoo, but obviously it would be made out of like wood, something like a child could walk up to and like learn about the animals in their area, what type of structures they live in, that sort of thing.
Have you taken a walk to spot out trees that would be tall enough for an owl box?
I have done a walkthrough. I don't
There are
have
some
any
really- there are
set
some
trees
really
yet. There's some
wonderful
really
tall-
good ones.
Yeah, yeah. And how do you set the boxes up there? I mean, somebody has to scramble up there.
Yeah, the plan is to get a really tall ladder. There's a lot of people in the fire department, along with my troop, that I was going to
Okay.
get the help from, and utilizing a pulley system.
Okay. That could be really cool.
I think the stuff in the open field part would definitely conflict with some of the stuff that's going on, so I think we'll need to work with you on that.
All right.
The mason bee boxes, I think,
Yeah, one of them got cut off at the top, but they're all around Pollinator Park.
there's a location in, near the skate shack that we could place one. And I'd be willing to work with you on, finding locations for each of the different ones if you want to do that.
All right.
I think it's important that for the informational kiosk too, I think it's important that whatever style we end up using for those, that it matches sort of the style of the other things that we're doing too, which I think is going to be similar to what we have in place there at the walking trail kiosk at the head, right? So if we can kind of work on a design with that, that would be great.
Right.
Do we have a plan for maintenance of the bee boxes and the removal of the honey and the wax and winterizing?
It's not a honeybee box. It's a carpenter bee.
Okay.
And I haven't seen your design, but typically they have.
I've got some images of the houses that have been built thus far that I worked with
Oh, very cool.
some members of my troop on.
Oh, very
And this
cool.
one, we're building one of the duck houses.
That is way cool.
And these, I believe, are the bluebirds.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah.
Very nice.
They're really good. That's going to be excellent.
So it's not going to be honey.
Okay.
It's more for pollinating bees, really. And usually what it is it's, I don't know what your design is, but usually it's 3 sides with some sort of holes or tubing through it that the bees build.
The design I have utilizes like hollowed out reeds inside a metal mesh container that has sides on each top and a solid top.
This is going to be a great addition to the park. Thank you
Oh,
for
yeah.
taking this project
Yeah.
on.
This is fantastic.
Excellent.
Any questions?
Yeah, is there, so the sort of predator birds probably have ranges, home ranges that they like to protect. Do you have a good sense that this is enough room for 3 hawks and two owls and?
The general consensus I've looked into is that they should be around 50 feet apart from each other
Oh, okay.
to like give their own territory.
Oh, there's plenty of room.
Yeah, and each of the houses is designed to protect against predators, so
They won't be eating each
The
other.
non-
they're not going to be fighting each other off easily.
Yeah.
Okay, that's really great.
May I throw out one similar question? And that is, these birds get into a nesting situation, are people going to be disturbing them? In other words, we're gonna pull birds in, or whatever, these houses, and then we have people that can come along.
I'll give them my map. They seem to be pretty off the
I don't know
path.
anything
Yeah,
about
look,
this.
so,
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, I think if we can work together to identify trees and areas in the park
Right.
to locate them, I think we can avoid that. But yeah, it will. I mean, there's going to be if you bring people into a natural environment, there's going to be that rub, and we have that now. But it's a matter of, you still have to try. You know, it's still, you're still providing habitat opportunities, and I think that's what we're excited about.
If you know how to move woodpeckers, I got a family that loves to eat my house, so find them and bring them over, I love it.
So, can we set up a time, not now, but set up a time somewhere in your schedule so that we can meet and go over the locations?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, and then, can you share with me the design for the informational kiosks?
Yes.
And then, whatever the imagery is going to be in there, let's try to make that consistent with, and I can help you with that. We'll try to make that consistent with what we're going to be doing moving forward as well.
All right.
Thank you.
Does anybody have any other questions?
No, it really looks good.
No,
Thank
just
you so
profound
much.
gratitude.
Thank you, Miles. If you guys want to, if we want to jump back.
Jump back to baseball.
Actually, I want to jump back to lacrosse, if we can. So, Jim, we held up to talk about the lacrosse stuff until you got here. This was information that Jim and I had shared, and I wanted to share it with the committee and with the group. And I think this is consistent with information that we've heard from other folks as well, but maintenance of the lacrosse field is really important, and they really want a commitment to the regular mowing schedule. So what I did over the last week was I shared this information with Kathleen Canavan and with Steve and with Gary Persichetti. I also shared the park user survey, the stakeholder surveys, and then also the Conservation Commission just finished a survey of people's feelings about conservation areas, and there was a lot of comments about field maintenance and mowing schedules and stuff like that. So I shared all that information with them, and the DPW is going to get back to us with a response about the issues around mowing and field maintenance and whatnot. And I know in talking to Steve earlier this week, he had said that they're looking at it internally. They're talking about different equipment that they could purchase to try to address this, but it sounds like that they're hearing that it's an issue and they want to address it. So I would expect that we should be hearing back from them about mowing schedules and getting stuff on path.
Could I ask a couple questions?
Yeah, sure.
I'm just curious because I've read everything you have online and I think I know what I'm looking at or I understand, but maybe I don't. So will the field be graded? Will it be graded?
Yes.
You know how the hill is there.
Yeah.
It's a wonderful hill, but if there's going to be a field there, it will be graded. Yes?
Yes.
Okay. And irrigated as well?
Yes.
Which is awesome because if we use it a lot, you know how fields are, the irrigation will make it much better. Better and usable. And maybe just one other thing I wanted to throw in is that we're doing a lot of fundraising, so we're healthier financially over the past 7 or 8 years, and I'm very involved in that side of things. So you had sent an email that said, some proposals around contributing as a user. We don't have any problem with that. I mean, like it's kind of inferred in there. I would like to know, ballparks of amounts to go back to the board. But as a member of the board and someone who's been doing a lot in lacrosse now for several years in town, I don't see a problem with us contributing to maintenance and things like that. I mean, we're a stakeholder. We have skin in the game, like I said. I don't have a problem with that at all, and I don't think the board will at all because we've already discussed it. And the only other thing was the storage. I had put 2 goals, but we'll really use 4 goals there because for practices we'll break up 2 goals into 2 goals. And I can work with you, Bill, too, on storage things. I was reading the part about the music and the band folks needing storage space, and they said it's during the 6 weeks that they only need it for a 6-week period. And I thought that could fit nicely with us because we really only need winter storage. We would just be looking at taking the nets and rebounders, trying to store them in the wintertime. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And the Chumash nets would really only be used in the summer. So I don't think that would conflict at all with the music program if, you know, during their time frame, I don't see us having any storage needs during that time. It's really would be late fall, early winter, into the end of winter.
Okay.
And maybe the DPW would work, I just don't know what the size is and all of that, but those are just my thoughts anyway.
Do the nets come apart? Like to
No,
store?
not, well, yes and no. There are homeowner nets that we use, right?
Yeah.
Those come apart. There
But the
are
main-
what are called pro nets, they're the heavy ones that you really can't move or you don't want to move a lot, made for, you know, shooting and so they
Yeah.
don't fly all over the place in high winds. Those are much harder to take apart. Some of them are welded permanent and some of them can be taken apart.
Yeah.
It's hard to do that. With homeowner nets, you can take them apart. But once you set up all the nets, depending on how you strung the net, it's hard to take it apart.
I only worry because we had proposed the band storage, but it has a door, it has just a regular door, right? Like a 36-inch door to go into the storage area for the band, and I don't see your net
Yeah,
fitting
it
through a
won't fit.
regular door.
Yeah, those won't fit. So is the DPW storage a potential, they have the bigger door, right? Is it going to be that
Yeah,
same unit or is it a new one?
It's gonna be segregated
It's
for
good,
their
yes, it's gonna be
stuff.
separate.
Because they're gonna have they're gonna have stuff that they don't want anybody else to have access to. So that'd be something you'd have to work out with them and try to, but they won't agree to a blanket, we'll let you store stuff there kind of thing.
Because the stuff they're gonna store there, it needs to be
Yeah.
under key.
I see.
Yeah,
So I guess my next avenue would then be the baseball storage shed in back of the fire department, because you didn't want a lot of other structures. Could we improve that or make it a little bit higher so they could fit in there?
Well, actually, two questions for you, Bill. Can you accommodate in the dugout storage structure a shared space? So can that dugout accommodate the nets?
have to be a lot bigger.
Yeah, it'd have to be a lot bigger, but I'm sure we could do that.
And then with the new dugout structures, and I sent Mike Donahue an email today, are you guys going to be using the storage shed on the back of Engine 3?
If we had something closer to the fields, if we put where the field location would be, I
Right.
would say probably not.
So we could either refurbish that or potentially, if the chief was okay with it, add a slightly larger structure that would accommodate the nets.
Yep.
Okay. So I think our two options really are shared space or converting that Engine 3 adjacent storage unit, which would actually work out well for you because it would be closer to the field. Assuming that the chief would be okay with, maintaining that as a storage unit and then potentially enlarging it. But I think it would just need to be taller, not so much
Yeah.
deeper, really,
Right,
so.
Right, maybe a tiny bit deeper, because I used to coach baseball and I would store stuff in there and I had a combo, so I know what it is. Maybe just a little bit bigger,
Right.
a little bit higher.
But not huge.
too much.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Unless along the dugout, that can work out that way, you know what I mean, the one there. I don't know how is that just gonna be one door, too?
We don't know yet. That's gonna be more of a shed, right? We're thinking more of,
If there was a shed that doors open wide,
Yeah.
that might work well.
but you would also have to lug it. It will work, you just have to, the field's gonna be all the way in the back now, so.
Yeah, that's all right. I mean, if
Yep.
you're only doing it once a season,
Yeah.
in and out,
Yep.
not a big deal.
Would that still allow you guys enough space to store your stuff?
Yeah, I would assume so. I mean, again, it would be in the winter time, they'd be storing theirs, we'd be doing the same thing, so,
Okay.
yeah, I
Don't need to
can't
move
imagine
much.
that's too much of a problem.
Okay. So you actually covered off on a lot of this already, but that you're open to fundraising and that you guys would be lining the field itself. And then talking specifically about the sharing and then your winter storage for the nets, bless you, and then summer storage for the Chumash nets.
Yeah, and I just want to make one other comment. We're very grateful for this. And you people are spending all this time to do this, all of these meetings and all of this planning. And we're benefiting for it, and the kids will benefit. We'll use it for both the boys and the girls programs. We're now looking at, if this comes to fruition, everything goes, let's say everything passes and it gets through, we will try to expand use between boys and girls. That's what we like to do. In the parameters we already gave you, for summertime use.
And you're still primarily looking at the under 12 too, right? This is still the younger.
Yes, we'll really, because of the size of it, it's really made for U9 and U11.
Okay.
And that will be the same with the girls' ages as well, yeah.
Because that really fits well with baseball and fits well with, I think, the neighborhood theme of the park, that it's the
Exactly.
younger kids that go there.
It's like I shared with you, I've coached the younger kids over the years, And when parents can bring their kids to play at the playground for the younger ones and the other ones are playing lacrosse, it's awesome. you
Right.
know. It's just a really good mix for younger families.
Okay. Any other questions about lacrosse? No? Well, thank you for sharing, and thank you for your involvement. Really appreciate it. We were also, I just had a placeholder for baseball. Did you have any additional information that you wanted
We
to
haven't
share?
met yet,
Okay.
so I have not had that opportunity.
Okay.
We'll draft something, a response for you.
Bill, do we need to put anything in for better drainage for the fields, or are you just confident when we get new fields, they're gonna be better?
I'm confident that, well, based on what Steve has told us in the past,
Yeah.
what his plan is, and that is to basically sort of raise it and grade the whole thing.
Okay, he's gonna raise it and grade it,
So
okay.
if that's the case,
Yep.
then I can't imagine that it's not gonna be a problem.
Do you want to add an expectation that there will be drainage so that water won't stand in the infield?
You mean like now?
Yeah, that's, we don't share a field today. 'cause
I mean,
one's
it
flooded.
rained for the last 3 days, but still, I mean, do you want to, we can add that as an expectation to the...
We could certainly add that as an expectation, but based on the plan, I think that's what's expected.
That's what I wanted to make sure.
But, yeah, we could certainly,
Do you want to spell it out?
yeah, we probably should, I guess, right? I mean, we're spelling everything else out, why not?
And just to have it as part of the public discussion, and I shared this with you beforehand, one of the comments that I got was, from the neighbor, was that we should consider just using one field. And I'd like to at least have a open discussion about how that would impact you guys, and the things that you do with the two fields and why that's important to have the two. We don't have to do that today necessarily, but at least I think we need to be prepared to have that discussion in a public input session if someone asks the question.
In short, if you wind up shorting us a field, we would need to find another field someplace else.
Yeah.
And that would be on the town to try to help us find another field. So where would I find another field would be the question.
And divide the staff.
I'll just throw in, I was just there today, and there was 5 teams vowing for one usable field because of the rain. There was 2 games and then another team practicing, and we all had to be on one field because of the condition of the second field. So if we only had one field, there'd be significant scheduling changes.
So the impact would be from scheduling, plus, I mean, that there's the benefit of having all of your U12 games played in one central location, right?
For us, it's U5, 6, and 7 in the springtime, and then in the fall, it's a greater range.
So would it add to your scheduling burden if you had to, let's say, for instance, they converted one of the school fields and added what we're doing now, right? That was the suggestion that we use. They put the new stuff into one of the school fields. How would that impact the organization and the scheduling? And
Well, again, now at that point, we would then have to talk about maintenance of that field versus the 2 fields at Roberts that we do now. There would have to be a lengthy conversation about that,
Okay.
and whether or not that's
You can compete against softball too.
correct, and whether or not that's a viable solution or not too. I mean, again, to the point, the great thing about the Roberts location is that, and especially in the springtime, where we're 8-year-olds and under. So for that young family that has 2 kids, a 7-year-old and a 3-year-old, they get to go and be there while the 3-year-old is playing on the playground and watch their other child playing baseball at the same time. And if we had to go to another location for that set of group, that other location may or may not have a playground, and then we don't get that true piece that I think is very helpful
You
at that
start
age.
dropping more attendance.
Yeah.
And from a town's perspective, you're talking about, you're basically doubling the maintenance,
Yeah.
right? Because you're...
Right. I mean, right now there are the other school fields are not exactly what I would call in any sort of shape to actually play on, with the exception of the high school fields, and even that baseball has maintained some of that. But as far as, like Parker and McCarthy, those don't, McCarthy used to have a baseball field that is now to the point it's completely overgrown. You can't even see where the backstops used to be. And the Parker one, I would say, it's a baseball field, I guess. They're using quotes there.
Yeah, it's not.
But it's just, you see the outline of where a baseball field used to be, but it's not,
Yeah,
it's not maintained, it's not anything, so
I think Byam has a backstop.
Byam does have a backstop, but that is not a field that we currently use at all.
Okay.
Just to note, to add to so it's in the public record, he's already going, but youth baseball is already going from 3 to 2 fields.
Correct.
So we should make sure people realize that we are already downgrading a field and not asking for the same number that's there now, so.
Right.
I'd like to just make a comment and kind of support these guys. We use Parker for our older kids, and we were pushed out there because there just aren't enough fields, right? And with rental of the turf, we only have so much time on turf now because that's rented out to help pay for the refunds. So we're pushed to Parker, and we just make space with baseball, but there's always 2 or 3 teams there just finding space to do practice, and we work with them, even though we have the permit for the field.
As do we.
The other side is softball, and one side is baseball. And so there could be a lot of conflicts there, but we just kind of work it out. And if you really did a survey of that and looked at the coaches who try to do their practices, and together with us being pushed there, you now have a field that's not a good field to begin with. It's awful, let's face it. And we're all on it. So that makes a case for just a big crowd of all of the sports mix, because it's such a town where kids are involved in sports at those younger ages. So I think for these guys, and I used to coach over at Roberts in Fitzalubia when I coached baseball, and it was always crowded.
And speaking from the person across the street, I got a lacrosse ball at my window the other day across Crooked Spring.
Oh, no.
Because you guys are crammed into an area that's like, why are they even there? But you were in a random spot where the equipment thing is. I don't know, it didn't break it.
Bill, did anybody say why they would object to having 2 fields instead of 1?
The general context of the comment is that we're, with all the stuff that we're proposing, it's like we're trying to fit 10 pounds of potatoes in a 5-pound bag.
But that's no change, it already had 2 fields.
Well, and then I pointed out to him, I pointed out that there were 3 that they were already downgrading to 2, and I said the same comments. My point of bringing this up is that I feel like it's an issue that's out there. I think that it would be a great benefit to include just a quick slide of bullet points that we can put into the appendix to say exactly why we feel like it's important that there should be 2 there. I'm personally fully in support of having the 2 fields. I just think if we can put that information together in one place and just sort of, head it off before, to make sure that it doesn't become an issue. So. And I want to make sure that you were aware that it's at least out there. And I'm sure you've heard it before. I mean, it's not a surprise. So, any other comments about baseball? Did you have anything else that you wanted to add? Do you feel like you guys will have some information to share with us whenever we have our next meeting?
Like I said, we already maintain the infields already at a cost already today. Our plan would be to continue to certainly do that for sure. As far as, to pay for the building of it, I'm sure we could do some sort of fundraising or something along those lines. I have not talked to the board yet because we have not had a meeting since then. So.
Right. Okay. Any other questions? No? Jumping back in. We had a discussion at the last meeting about our plans for controlling Bittersweet, and Maggie did some research on that.
A very tiny bit of research. So just from looking on the internet, and I think Bill has a very useful reference on the next slide, and some information from Katie Enright and from Corey Rose. So, and this is just a very, very basic summary. So right now, the herbicides that are most widely used fall into two families. So there's one that is a little bit more selective in the kinds of plants that it kills, but it's harmful for aquatic wildlife, so that's not allowed to be used in wetlands. And the other is called glyphosate, and that's the active component in things like Roundup, and that is allowed with regulated use near wetlands. And I had the opportunity to talk with Corey a lot. She came by when we were pulling out invasives over the weekend in the park. So then there was a discussion about how herbicides would be applied. And at the last meeting, we were talking about spraying, but I think since then I've spoken with Bill, and you have spoken with some contractors who indicated that by foliar spraying, it's not meant to be widely broadcast, so that it basically kills everything in its path, but very targeted spraying of just the leaves of the plants that are desired to be gotten rid of. But the spraying does have some effects. The glyphosate kills any vegetation that it touches, basically. If it hits a bug, the bug is history. And the thing is that it does get into the soil, because the plants that you're killing take it into their systems, and when they die, it's in the soil. So afterwards, the weeds that grow in that area, especially if it's a wide, like just a broadcast spray, what you get back are weeds that are resistant to the glyphosate. And then they have the glyphosate in their tissues, and Corey had mentioned that, for instance, butterflies might lay eggs on what is normally an expected host for caterpillars, but the caterpillars could be poisoned because of the presence of the glyphosate in the tissue of the plants. Okay. So from speaking with Corey and from some information that Katie Enright had forwarded me, it seems that the way things proceed mostly is to start with a mechanical removal, and then where necessary to use herbicides to target. I think Jim had mentioned, Jim Martin had mentioned at the last meeting, using a sort of cut and paint method where for the very big vines, you would cut them close to the ground and paint the stumps basically with the chemical to just kill those plants. And so the master plan will call for just that combination of treatments, and of course it'll have to be with the supervision of the Conservation Commission. And that was about it. I think that you have some more information on the next slide, right, Bill?
So I found a study, it was sort of a study summary between the Mass DEP and MDAR, which I'm not sure exactly what that is, but it basically identified the mobility, how quickly or how long it takes for the glyphosate to spread, if it does spread. And it said that after 45 days of half an inch of water per day, it's leached completely out. As far as how long will it stay in the area, it's at the top end, it's half a year, so 175 days. So it's not a long, multi-year proposition. It's a half a year for staying in the area. And then in terms of toxicity, these are kind of some disturbing studies, but what this study said, and I want to point out too that if you're watching at home, there's a link to the document on the meeting presentation documents, so you can check and make your own interpretations. But in this document, it said that the glyphosate was less irritable than Pine Sol or dishwashing liquid, and that they had done studies with glyphosate and had literally given dogs up to 500 milligrams of it per day and not seen any effect on the animals. Basically the same thing. There wasn't any changes. They did the same thing with birds. The groups that are affected are more like fish, and that's why there's the restrictions on not doing it in wetlands. So, does anybody have any questions about that? I know those were issues we were talking about last time.
Just as clarification, as opposed to not doing it in wetlands, which is what you just said, should be used carefully and under specific guidelines.
Well, yeah, I don't think we can. I think there's state regulations that say you can't use it in wetlands. And that's where the, right?
So the triclopyr is the one that even when you, so that's in the, when you get a product from, the home store that has that as its active ingredient, it'll say specifically not for use in wetlands, in areas with water.
Okay.
The glyphosate, I understood, is somewhat safer and is permitted. The Corey, I think, said that it was permitted, but there is, I don't know the regulations, but I'm assuming that there are an awful lot of regulations that dictate exactly how it can be applied.
So Adele, are you saying that we should change the wording on the recommendation? The master plan proposal calls for mechanical removal with the herbicide treatment with Concom supervision in wetland areas? Or does that satisfy your comment?
I was just correcting what you said a few minutes ago, that it was, that you can't use it at all in the wetlands.
Oh, got you. Okay, thank you. Okay. Any other comments or questions or anything about this? No? Dave Tweed just came in from the community band. Hi, Dave. We actually covered off on your other stuff, but we can go back, and if there's any specific, we had a couple of questions about storage. We are looking at or have looked at and talked to the DPW about building in partitions into the parks garage, right? That would allow you to store your equipment there. Would you use that as a year-round storage opportunity, or would that just be for the 6 weeks of the summer series, 6 to 8 weeks of the summer series?
If it is suitable for year-round storage, we would keep our summer gear there.
So it's basically an open garage. We're talking about just adding partition walls, so it'll be open. It won't be heated. It's not a particularly dusty place, but they are talking about putting a new roof on, so it should be watertight.
Right.
Would that satisfy your needs for year-long?
I think what we do in that case is keep our storage at the town offices for the winter and just use that space during the summer then.
Okay. So we could use that space in the winter for other stakeholders?
Yes,
right.
Absolutely.
Okay. And we also talked about, I know I copied you on the email, but the Board of Health has agreed to work with us to put together some noise level measurements so that we can put a sort of a baseline together.
I saw those emails. I just wanted to comment that neither July 3rd nor July 4th are really representative of our concerts. On July 3rd, we have the whole street fair going on, and most of the sound on the common is not from us.
Okay.
And on the 4th, we're one of the elements in the parade, so it's really not, that's not at all how we perform when we're not in the parade.
Is there a outdoor performance that you do that would be more representative?
Well, the rest of our concerts this summer will be on the common, so the Tuesday following the 4th of July will be the jazz band, I believe, and the Tuesday after that will be the concert band.
Okay, so you
could get a sample of either band on those 2 weeks.
All right, great. And just, you weren't here when we talked about this, but so we can measure the sound levels and at least give the neighbors and the people who are asking about the impact of sound on the park and their homes, obviously, how much they should expect. We could also do the same thing for baseball games, just to have sort of a baseline to say, you know, the noise levels are here for baseball games, and then they'll be here for concerts. Would you guys be okay with that, if we did that? Could you give me some ideas of times would be good to go and take those measurements, like the schedule or something?
Anytime, right?
I mean,
The problem is the season for spring is running down.
Right.
Saturday. You can go Saturday.
So
There's
anytime
a lot
on
of-
Saturday would be good.
Okay.
Because there should be 2 games going on both of those fields at any time during the day.
Okay.
If we don't get too much rain tomorrow.
The 10th.
Exactly.
So June 10th is pretty much the last opportunity.
Until, yeah, and then we do summer, but it's not as much. It's usually only 1 field maybe, and then in the fall again, it's maybe 1 or 2 fields, but in spring, that's when you would have 2 fields, 4 teams, you'd have,
Right.
you know.
It'd be the peak.
Correct.
Highs, right?
Yeah.
Jim, are you guys are done, right? So you don't have any games going on right now, do you?
Correct. We have Jamboree coming up this week and we have Fort Devon, so.
Okay.
Right, we're done.
Okay. Dave, did you have any questions for us or anything, other information that you wanted to share? Well, I've gone through the comments that you had shared with us by email before.
No, I really don't have anything to add to that.
Okay.
At this point. So I just want to clarify the point about which concerts to take sound samples at.
Okay. You had a question about location.
I did want to bring up location again. I know the sun is a problem, but when we looked at the size of the structure that we were proposing to build and where we were going to put it, it would really be the only thing you see from the parking lot looking towards the playground. It would kind of overwhelm that view from the playground over. It's a little, in my opinion, this is only my opinion so far, I think, it's a really big structure. It's a tough location for that big of a structure, even though it doesn't have walls. Is there any, looking at, I don't know if you've looked at the map online, is there any place you're looking at that we could look at on the field that makes sense still for you? That we
The
can,
diagram that I saw, last diagram that I saw, sort of placed it directly on the side, the long edge of the parking lot.
yes. Oh, on the long edge of the parking lot. So not with a DPW garage, it's on the other side, right, is what you're
Right,
talking
I'm
about?
talking about the,
All right, here you go.
yes, up there.
Yep.
There are walkways shown in this diagram, but if it was moved around to the end of the parking lot, there's a bit of that's sort of the high point of the whole.
Which end?
Right where that dot is right now. If that structure was there, would that be?
You got it.
In regard to that?
That's what you were talking about, having a welcome area and everything.
Well,
But I don't, we didn't establish what we were doing there. It's kind of,
and just, I jumped ahead, but just let me back up just one. So this is the revised site plan that Howard Stein Hudson and Katie and Wright put together, and it reflected the addition of this welcome area here, right? And then the trail connecting from the parking lot directly to the playground. The bathrooms are still here.
yes, that's,
I think the last time we were here, you had mentioned possibly looking at this as an area for the bandstand,
that was one possibility, was moving it down
in
some,
sort of this
yeah.
open area.
And then it was also, but I really like the other side of the field, but I know that there's some objection because of the sun to that.
So you're saying and this isn't it's kind of cut off, but it's right here.
Yeah.
Is what you're looking for. But I think that's going to pose an issue for the performers because the sun's right in your face.
Most of the evening, yeah.
The other issue with having it here, I think, is that, and it looks like a small gap here between the lacrosse field and that. It's a decent amount of space, but it is pretty close for lacrosse balls to be
Yeah.
sipping around in there. So I know Katie had an issue with sort of the safety issue of it being so close to that.
And that is, I mean, it's going to be graded, but there still has to be some hill that, like, she's got to come down a little before she flattens.
Right.
Because she's not raising that whole area up 6 feet, so that's going to be a hill. Where you're pointing right now, it's got to be a hill.
Where?
Right there.
This? It's that was one of the things I had hoped we could talk with Steve about, to sort of to have them just make sure that they can do what they want to do. We'll show you some pictures. Barry and I went out to the park the other day just to kind of set out some cones and take some pictures of where the things are in the site plan. And this is roughly where the bathrooms are located, right? This little box here. So the parking lot would be extended out to about here, right? And then there'd be a trail. I think the guardrail would be about right here, and then that's where the bathroom would be.
Yep.
And that's looking from a little off from the Friendship Park. And this is the same bathroom location, just looking from the
walkway,
playground,
yeah.
over. And then we took a look at where the bandstand would be on the site plan, and that's the shaded area here, right? So you can see sort of how close it is to the parking lot, and that's me. And I'm standing on the corner where the corner of the lacrosse field. So you can see sort of how close it is. This is the footprint of the bandstand here. There's the parking lot, right? And we're taking the picture looking back up towards. So the orientation of it is that the bandstand really is sort of on that corner and in front of the house across the street there.
One of the things happening there is the bandstand, of course, is competing in space and crowding the ball fields. So it's pushing the ball fields back right to the edge of the woods. And if you didn't have that there, then the fields could come forward a little bit.
Are the lacrosse fields going to be used on Tuesday evenings? That's during that 6-week period?
I was just thinking about that. When does the series start?
July.
Start after the 4th of July.
Yeah,
You go
so-
6 weeks after that.
Yeah, so we can schedule around that. If we're doing summer programming, that's more flexible. Our spring season, which is our bigger use time, would be, it just ended.
Okay.
So it ends this weekend, really. Actually, it's got 2 more weeks, but we're away at this Jamboree thing. So for all intents, for in town, it would be ended by the second week of June. And then in July, in any summer programming, we could work around the concert. Because I was just thinking that, looking at it, you probably want people to be on the lacrosse.
They'll be sitting, yeah.
Yeah.
That's where our audience would be.
Yeah, I think it would be great. I think it would be awesome.
This bottom one, you can see this is the bandstand area here, and then there's the gap, and then that's kind of where the lacrosse field starts. One thing to look at here is look at the elevation grade changes. I mean, it's going to take a considerable amount of fill.
That's
So you
what
could-
I see. I always envisioned they would fill some, but they would still give a hill and then fill. And we wouldn't use the very upper echelon, like there would be a hill next to the lacrosse field and then it would be flat. Because I didn't think they would bring it all up to the level of the parking lot at the lacrosse.
So did they talk about putting a retaining wall or something like that? They're gonna have to grade it somehow.
Yeah, they didn't talk about how they were gonna do it.
No, it's just been said that it's going to be leveled and filled.
And she didn't think there was that much fill involved either when she mentioned it, so I'm not sure what the plan exactly
It's
is.
surprising, but yeah. So that's roughly where it would fall footprint wise. We kind of noodled around with some alternates, and going back to your original suggestion of putting it in that corner, taking it out of where it is in the plan and pushing it into that corner that we had talked about making kind of a welcome area, but I think in our minds at least it makes more sense, may make more sense here. So it gets pushed in there. This is the view from the street, so imagine that our backs are to the store and we're looking towards the field. So this is kind of the view shed for that. I think that one of the nice things about having it in this area is that the back of the pavilion and where the performance and the noise and stuff goes really sort of backs up to the store. So you're not pushing any sound or impeding the visual.
And you're still turning it out
But then
diagonally at that point towards the
So
field.
here's kind of a drawing.
Yeah, it's,
Oh, okay.
we'd have to probably move the bathroom, but yeah.
So, it's moving it from here into this area, right? And then you'd want to connect the playground directly from the walking area, running the pathway in front of it. We need to move the bathroom, but we think we actually found a better spot for the bathroom down here. The nice thing about having it down here, one of the nice things about having it down here is that it takes the sound of the door slamming and the smell and that stuff and puts it down, literally downhill.
Bill, can you go back to the picture for a second? the
Yes.
previous one?
Which one you want me to go back
Next
to?
one. Yeah, here you go. May I?
Certainly.
What we've done here is just use Photoshop to show what the extension of the parking lot would be like. So that's what you're seeing here, it's just that's the hand job. So what you see here is with the bathroom facilities gone, you've actually got a fair amount of room there. So moving the toilets and moving the bandstand have to kind of work together. You can't do this with a bandstand, you've got toilets, because
Yeah.
otherwise your toilets would be literally sitting right here. It just, people eating there, they do performances, a whole bunch of stuff that would work. But with the way this is laid out right now, and Bill's going to take you over to what we've thought would be a pretty good layout for the
Bathrooms?
yeah. So here you go, it's footprint. Fits right nicely in with the whole park.
One of the nice things about having it here is that it's down the hill, right? So it keeps the smell and the noise downstream. It's still accessible from the upper parking lot and the lower parking lot. And the other nice thing about it is that it sort of gives purpose to this the existing brick walkway, right? It puts, and it connects the bathrooms to the playground. So, parents kind of have that pathway to get back and forth versus going, across. You kind of go down. And it opens up the use of this area.
It's also accessible for service.
Yeah.
The way we laid this, you can still pull it.
Just a curiosity, will the bathroom have are they just porta toilets, or will they have a thing for like a change in diapers or anything like that?
So what we have in the plan is a shade structure, with 3 latticed walls. I don't know if it would be wood or we have a metal picture of one that has metal, but it's open walls, shade structure, and then bench seating and garbage for changing. David, yes?
It doesn't stop for us and our neighbors. Come on, a toilet 150 feet from our house.
That's 150 feet?
That's,
Yes, to our property.
that was going to be my next question,
Yeah,
because the bandstand
and
got a lot
not only
closer.
that, I mean, our neighbor right next door, that's literally on top of his berm. So we'll make sure that he attends the public input session for that one.
You have about 150 feet not from your house.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's getting pretty close to the
From our
property line.
property, right? Maybe not from our actual property, from our property line. I
Yeah,
mean, everyone on the board, just think about if somebody came and put a public toilet that close to your house, how you would feel.
Okay, it's fair. I didn't see it that way.
Okay.
The location that it was before it got moved to this location, did you have the same objection to it? in
No,
that-
it was far enough away at that point. I mean, at what point, you have to make it accessible to people without a doubt. Being close to the parking lot is important.
Yeah.
And so we understand that, right? You can't go put it in a place where people have to walk quite a distance.
Okay.
But the closer it gets and closer it gets,
Well, an alternate location would be to put it here, and to face it out either towards the field or face it towards
I
the
mean,
parking
if they were
lot.
okay with it, I thought we liked it where it was on the other side, because it was still further away, because it wasn't looking, when you look from the parking lot, that wasn't what you were seeing. It was off to the side, but it wasn't down the hill, is what I think was our compromise originally, where we had it, the last plan,
Here?
right there. Yep, that's
What
what
do
we
you
already
do
had.
with the pavilion?
Well, we're talking about potential places for the pavilion, so maybe that's not the best place for the pavilion then.
Where
point.
would the audience sit for the pavilion?
In here.
And that's,
It's a little far. It seems far to me. So when I think about the placement of the walkways and where the walkways are, I'm not sure you want that much. I mean, our friend from the band can speak to this too, but some people will like to sit close, some people will like to sit a little further away, but you want to have that option of sitting close without people walking in front of you constantly on the path necessarily.
So I'm gonna go back to this again. I'm sorry. Number one, this is still an option down here. We could potentially do that. The sun is setting here, correct?
Yes.
Most of the season, coming this direction. Why can't we put this bandstand here, facing this way? Then you're close to your store, you face it, you're here, but it's facing down this way, okay? So the band is looking this way, your crowd's looking at you, because now one thing you're not considering there is your audience is now staring right into the sun looking at you, but you guys aren't in the sun. But if you put them there, everybody looking at you is looking at the sun the whole time. So, I mean, is this that ridiculous to put it this way and face it, basically turn it the same way we have it angled here, but opposite. So you're playing this direction.
That's the southwest.
Yeah.
It might work. I'd have to actually stand out there this summer and see.
If you could soon, that would be good, because I mean, that would solve so many things for the placement of all of this. We're really trying to accommodate. I'm being mean this meeting, I'm sorry, but I'm just trying to get this accomplished. I don't want this thing to be the only thing you see from the parking lot. And we're really close to the lacrosse field.
My understanding is that structure, when it's not being used for concerts, is basically a picnic pavilion. Right.
It's enormous. The picture, do we have the picture in the slide deck or no?
Yes.
The roof of it is quite, the one we were looking at least.
No, I understand that. I'm
It's-
just talking
it's-
about how it will be used. When it's
Oh, yeah, but we have smaller picnic pavilions already established here and here. We take out this picnic pavilion and use it there. But this picnic pavilion's gonna be kind of a free space picnic pavilion because we're not gonna put tables in it.
No,
Or
we'll
anything
have
like.
tables.
We'll
We'll
have
have
tables?
tables,
Why,
yes.
where are we gonna put the tables in the meantime?
In what meantime?
Like when they're doing the
Handless.
concert, we just put them in the field?
Yeah, move them back somewhere.
I thought we were gonna leave that one open and put the tables in this one and let people just kinda sit blanket.
There's tables on the budget, at least.
Okay. I thought we
The
were
point
putting
is-
tables.
the point I'm trying to make is that's an important structure for people who are using the facility,
Oh, absolutely.
even when it's not being used for band
But
concerts.
we had two other ones. We have two small ones in the plan as well.
And one of the criticisms too of the plan is that, like I said, we're adding too much to it. So if we were able to move the structure over to the eastern side like that,
It takes out a-
it would take out that second pondside pavilion. So,
I mean, we could even, in that case, you could boot the lacrosse field over a little and,
No, I understand that. I'm a little bit concerned about being that close to the water. Has anybody evaluated what the insects are like at dusk around that water?
Judging from the frogs.
Probably
Judging from the frogs, it's a lot, yeah.
Yeah, and that could make it unusable for us.
Yeah. All right.
well, I don't know if that we're able to find, I don't know that the current location on the site plan, yes,
this.
is workable.
There's
I
other
think-
people to vote. I'm not the only one here, so if everybody says they want it there, I'm okay with that. I just want to
I'm
raise
with-
my concern.
I'm with you. I don't want to, I think that a structure sitting right there is going to,
And I've gotten feedback from people that having that big of a structure in the front of it is going to block the view from the street, and they don't want that.
So we're back to here?
Either there or none.
Or, yeah, or if we don't think it's gonna work there, then it may get scrapped. But, so here, and we take out one of these, so we're not building too many structures, so right there, but right there?
Either there or to replace the pond side.
Yep, right there.
Question, aside from the toilets, so I understand that angle, what were the objections to the locations that it has there in red?
I think there's a noise objection. My question to
Yeah.
the neighbors was gonna be noise, more than the,
More than the toilets.
More than the
Pointed away,
Your
though,
voice about the toilets.
the
Yeah.
direction of the instruments is pointed directly away from your property, which
But a
means
drum
it's
doesn't-
more about the people through the woods. So like me, we'll get a lot of that sound at my house, which is music, so that's
Yeah,
fine
it's-
with me. You know, and it's not right there at my house, but we'll hear the ambient music. I don't know that, since it would not be pointed towards your house, the nature of brass instruments and all, that sound's going straight out, and it's got nothing to reflect off of. So in my personal opinion, I don't think either one of those two locations, the black or the red, would have significant impact on the neighbors over on the side where you all are. But the problem with the red location is the relocation of the bathrooms, and that
Yeah.
starts to become
Well, I
a
mean,
joke.
I get that totally.
Yeah.
If we could figure out something to do with the bathrooms.
Can't they go by the
Would that
welcome
actually
center?
solve other problems, or would it still create problems? 'Cause
would the seating work here, or are we just trying to make it work? Do you think the seating would work? People would be sitting on the path, basically, is what I'm thinking, and then you'd sit in that little area.
I think if you look at that,
Show us necessarily where the path is.
Yeah, because the path isn't there yet, and the playground fence is gonna
but I
come
don't know
out.
that the path is really is a
It's
detriment
not a
to
deterrent.
seating, you know what I mean?
No,
I think,
it's just-
I mean, it's not the only path
No.
in existence, and people do tend to respect a concert going on and
Yeah.
take an alternate path when possible. It's not, I don't think the path is gonna be a big.
So you think there would be enough seating if it was in
And
a,
you performed in places of pavilion type,
bless you,
where you've got pathways in the front stage.
bless you.
Yeah,
I know Lowell has an outdoor stage.
Campus, yeah. But that's an elevated structure. I mean, the
Yeah.
performance stage is like 4 feet off the ground there. So people walking by is even less of an issue. But yeah, it tends not to be a problem, really.
neighbor input? Is really what I want.
This woman has been trying to.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
Sorry, I have two thoughts now. First, with the, to support the neighbors here, my personal feeling, putting the bathrooms further down the hill, one thing I always found when I have two young kids on a playground, one has to go to the bathroom, if you do, and you drop my line of sight, I can send a kid to go use that toilet over there. But if I know the kid is to go down the road and it's closer to the street, now I gotta drag a second kid off the playground to try to get one over there, and then that's,
Yep.
versus keeping everything up on the same level. I think is very important on the toilets. The second thing is that I really liked your idea about changing, putting that band structure down close to the playground, dropping one of your structures, and making that band structure really more
Yeah.
multifunctional. And also it'll throw all the sound going out towards the
Yeah,
pond.
it would be here, it would
which
pace
is
that way, yeah.
least offensive to all the neighbors.
Yep, I'm fine with that.
So you're talking about putting it on the right?
Right where it says proposed structure, right on the prop, you put it right there.
And aiming at which direction?
And that allows a parent to sit under the shade, watching a game and watching their kid on the side. And
Yeah.
it's
Just-
big enough so it's more than one parent who's sitting there, so.
I mean, geometry-wise, whatever direction the designer thinks it's most aesthetically pleasing at that point is fine with me.
But that's the biggest problem when you have more than one kid on the field, is if you have one kid in this corner and the other kid way over there, you need to have a central place to do the span.
Is it possible to put the bathroom closer to the area you want to consider the welcome center?
It is on the,
On the first plan.
it is, it's adjacent to it.
Okay,
That's
because
the bathroom,
that's
that's the
kind of,
So this is the
Seems
plan as it
reasonable.
exists now, right? This is the site plan as it exists now.
So we're proposing potentially moving this here, and everybody's happy.
Yeah, I think that's a much
does that
better
work,
place
does that
for
work
it.
for you guys?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, and also is it Amanda and David? Is that, I mean, that's obviously better than having it 150 feet from your house? Okay.
It's still pointing away from your property.
I'm sorry?
The original location.
Yeah.
For the bathrooms, yes.
For the bathroom's
But the-
original
but the band
location, the
structure-
bandstand would move further away from you guys, closer to the other neighbors, but it would move down to here.
And then the bathrooms would be where?
The bathrooms are still staying right there, right there.
Facing the parking lot.
And the other thing I
Yes.
like about that is the smell of the bathrooms while I'm sitting there listening to the concert. It's-
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, that's,
That's all due to the wind. We can't really control that, but maybe less.
So, are we in consensus that we want to
Just move the one thing.
move the larger structure down?
And we should probably get rid of one of these.
Yeah.
Right, I'd get rid of that one.
This one or this one, I don't know.
Well, I don't like the idea of necessarily of that one, the
You like this
top left one. I don't, not if we're gonna put the big bandstand there. I think, honestly, what I think we should do is just, budget for 2 structures or shade structures, and let the position work out with the design. The reason why I don't like the one there is that I think it's gonna be too close to you guys' property. I don't know
This
that it's
one?
gonna,
Oh.
yes. I was kinda hoping to see that one a little further away. But again, I think that,
But this
depending on
one,
how stuff
theoretically,
flows-
this one could move over, and this property starts to get a little more open down here versus these houses that they live in and stuff are closer. The further down we go, the more, well, there's the one house right here,
Yeah,
actually.
and one of those could be converted to just shade on top of benches, right? So it's more of a budgeting item
Yep.
at this point.
Yep.
So are we in consensus that we want to move the larger bandstand to that open space between the bottom of the lacrosse field and the bottom of the Friendship Park?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, so I'll make that recommendation to Katie. Are you guys good with that? And we'll keep the bathrooms where they're located now? Yeah? Okay. Any other comments on the pathways or anything that was changed in the site plan that's shown here?
No, we went with one
Can I see
path.
the pointer again? Have it back. I just want to point out that what's new to this plan is this connecting and this connection here.
And the berms are added, it looks like, right?
Yes, she added the berms, and that's where those great Thula arborvitae would be.
So now we're up to, even with the berm, she's still giving us 38,000 square feet in the playground area as it stands now.
Correct. So,
39.
I'd like to recommend that we look at maybe chopping this up a little bit. I know we originally talked about starting with the maximum footprint that we could and then sort of culling down from there. I think just from being out there and looking at it, I think there'd be I'd like to see these trees inside the tree line, inside the fence line, so that the fence line is safe for the tree growth, right? It's not in that zone that we identified. So basically, it would just be sort of on the outside of this, and then follow this down. Because right now, the proposed fence line lines up pretty much with where the existing baseball fields are. So that's a big
Yeah.
space on that
Well,
side.
but the one thing I would say is if you want, based on the feedback I got from that lady, if we want the natural berms and an area that's grass to play in, we may need to have it be able to be segregated somewhere in there that we can actually grow it and do it correctly. And that really needs Steve's input and, like I said, the buy-in of the DPW for, if we do this, are you guys gonna take care of it?
Correct. Can we accomplish that on this side? Because I think that those types of areas are not going to be loud, I don't think. No, you think they will be? That's just
I
my-
think it's a playground, it's all gonna be loud. It's-
From what I read, though, if we have sort of a mix of structures in here and then sort of on the existing footprint, what are we gonna have in here?
I don't know, well, the other thing you have to consider is like Jim is gonna put a pretty hard time if we put a structure that needs a hole within 12 feet of the tree or whatever it is, so we have to, that side is open with no trees that are hugely wanting to be saved at least, there's a couple, but whatever. But the other side with the trees that definitely need to be trimmed, having been there today, because you can't even walk underneath them, it's gonna get a lot more restrictive.
Okay.
Where you put your equipment. Once again, I don't know that this is us anyways. This is just like the design, they're gonna have to design around that, but I don't know that we need to define it, but know that that area, I don't think is gonna be as usable as we want because of the restrictions with the trees.
Okay. How do you guys feel? What do you want to,
I'm confused about what you were saying in terms of moving the fence. I don't,
so the proposed fence line for the park is here,
yeah.
right? So what I'm suggesting is that we minimize or take back some of the footprint and go really closer to where the existing fence is now, but a little further out on the outside of the trees. Because right now, like, the fence line for these trees here is pretty much right up against the trunk, right? So what I'm suggesting is that we move the fence just far enough away from the tree so that it's a healthy distance, so it doesn't cut into that drip line.
And why are you saying that you want to do that? I'm sorry.
Because the feedback from Premier Park and Play was that we have too big of a footprint of the playground's too big. That we're trying to make it too large, that we're taking too much of the other park into the playground.
They don't know the size of the rest of the park, do they?
Well, I'm
Okay.
thinking, what do we gain by making it smaller? I mean, we gain, I don't know, 5 feet of a strip of grass, so
Okay.
that's not within the fence. I'm just not sure.
So let's keep it. You guys want to keep it as it is?
Let's keep it as
Okay.
is, just for, we need a determination of what area would be best for grassy play area.
Okay.
Because if the trees are too close together in the back, then we're not going to be able to accomplish there what we want.
Okay, so let's keep we'll keep it as it is.
I think we keep it as is. We just say, the expectation is that we're not gonna cover this entire area with playground material. With
Correct.
playground fill, with playground chips. The
And if we're
expectation
gonna use this
is,
grassy, we need a commitment from the DPW that
Yes.
they're gonna be able
Yes,
to close
that-
it and maintain it
yes,
or mow it.
that's our expectation.
And if they can't, then we'll talk about,
How we trim it down and
Trim it
then what we do. But
is that a,
the goal is to keep the grass
Yeah.
and incorporate it in the fence.
The other part, Jim's not here, but I know he had concerns with how far these fields are encroaching into the tree line. There's some big pine trees right here that are literally right on top of, that'll need to be cut out. So he had some suggestions to Katie to basically push everything up this way more.
Veto.
Yeah.
Which you can, wait a minute, you can do that now.
Aren't we moving the pavilion there?
Yeah. if you move
But
it.
I'm worried about the grade. I see, the question is the lacrosse field. Is she gonna keep a hill? Is she not gonna keep a hill? That's my reason why I said that. If we move it up and she's gonna keep a hill, you have to keep a hill from the parking lot and then flatten. You need room to do that. I know the pictures didn't do it justice, but I walk that. I know there's a hill there. You're gonna need 4 or 5 feet of fill to make a level lacrosse field if we're gonna push that towards the parking lot.
And a retaining wall.
And something to hold it all back, yeah. I mean, we're talking, I've been very good about the trees, well, I'm just being, anyways. But these are pine trees. We're keeping a lot of good trees, and if we have to lose a couple of pine trees, we lose a couple of pine trees.
Sounds like you don't respect pine trees.
I don't, I'm sorry.
They can run the grass anyway.
They can
Do we
let
have
me
any dearth of pine trees, or, I mean, they may be particular wonderful specimens, but do we have a lot of similar other specimens elsewhere?
Not of that age and size.
And these are the ones that are quite overgrown, getting killed by the
Not in that area,
bittersweet.
no.
Not in that area,
The bittersweet's not in this area.
down in that area,
The
but yeah.
bittersweet's down in here and then over that area.
But, I don't know. I've been very good about the trees, but this is everything's fitting. This is 3 trees. That I
And then
see on there.
there's this stuff.
contracted me to chain myself to the trees.
Okay, that's okay.
So do you know how many trees would be impacted by this, that he's concerned about?
How come you're not talking up here?
You know how I feel.
I know.
So this is what Jim was going to cover off on. Here's the, there's 3 here, 1 here. So these are the 4 that he was most concerned about. There's a number of trees in this area that I think he was, he felt like that if the fields were pushed forward some, that those could be saved and incorporated.
Your path is already killing all his trees anyways. According to his plan, every one of those dots needs to come down because we put a path there.
Which his point was is that if it was moved 25 feet northeast, they could be saved.
But does he want the,
25 feet.
yeah, does he want the path to be moved 25 feet as well?
Yes, he wants
He wants everything to be moved up 25 feet.
which 25 feet on this map is probably this, yeah.
No, I mean,
That's half the baseball field.
no, yeah, I mean, your path is 6 feet wide, so it's 4 paths up.
Yeah.
You're moving up, 4 paths.
So is the consensus that we want to stay with, the orientation it is now and lose the trees?
I
Or
would
do we
need to
want
see
to-
it drawn. I can't fathom, yeah, I can't get the vision of the relationship of the baseball fields to the music pavilion that we're now putting back there and the lacrosse field. And it doesn't have to be a completely new picture, but if it could be just drawn in another color,
I'm sorry, what could be drawn in another color?
the baseball fields and the walkway, so that I could see within.
Adele's saying something we've talked about for a while, laying this thing so that you can shut off some of the background noise and actually.
Do we want to ask Katie to try to push this stuff forward, or do we want to save the trees, or do we want to say we're okay with the loss of these trees and basically keeping the stuff where it is?
Okay, before you do that, can you just, with your pointer, show me where those diamonds are impacting, just the diamonds, the baseball diamonds? Because I can see, I don't know if it was Bill or Chris said, that the path seems to swipe through a bunch of trees, but where did the diamonds actually impact any trees?
I think his point is because the diamonds have to be the path has to be outside the.
Yeah, I mean, it's the dugouts. The dugouts here, and then the
Oh, the
paths
dugout,
have to be a certain
okay,
distance from the...
okay, so that's the structure, okay.
Right. And then this, this is the dugout here, and then the path has to be a certain distance from that. So once you put the path there, that's where these guys get cut out.
The baseball fields are basically pushing the path
Baseball's killing nature.
too close to the trees.
Well, I mean, really, the lacrosse field is, because it's pushing those back in, so I mean, it's all connected.
Yes, yes.
It's not either one thing, but I mean, ultimately, the decision is, do we forego the trees?
If you end up having to push it 25 feet up, then you're pushing that first diamond, that first
Yeah.
diamond's gonna push all of that up 25
Yeah,
feet.
and
You're
your
gonna be-
path
you're-
geometry has to
Now you're gonna
change.
be moving up that path, you're gonna be into that area where we're talking about putting the playground.
And the pavilions.
And the pavilion's
pavilion's
gonna
gonna
move,
be
and we have to worry
impacted.
about the slope of the lacrosse field.
What's the
You're also-
distance?
Yeah, the slope of the lacrosse field that's a big concern. I don't know what Steve would say about that, but just filling in that amount of soil to level that.
It's a big concern, but it's a separate issue. So do we save the trees, push the stuff, or just go with the plan as it is?
Is there room to slide field number 2 up?
I can
Save some
ask
of
Katie
the,
that.
save
That's
some
not-
of the trees?
I
I mean, we're really close to having everything fit.
Yeah.
And, so it's, to save as many trees as possible is really good, but it still has to be usable.
So should I ask Katie to try to push this stuff as far from to save the trees as we can, or?
But first
do we
you should
keep it safe?
locate the music pavilion, right? I
Right,
mean,
that's, right.
I think there's still plenty of room for that,
Yeah.
based on
okay.
memory of how big that is. I mean, I don't think there's any harm in asking her to say, can this be moved
Yeah.
a little further away? There is a distance between that outer arc of field number 2 and the line for the lacrosse field. So I know, people are gonna have to sit on the sidelines and all that sort of stuff, but maybe it's okay to close that gap a little bit. Maybe there's a way to do a little bit of extra that would
Okay.
help preserve that a little bit.
Okay, Dave?
Just looking at the diagram, could you just rotate field number 2 by 90 degrees?
No.
The orientation of where the players play, it has to be set up this way. It's kind of like with the band, they don't want the sun in the eyes.
Same. It wasn't okay for you.
So I'll ask, so I'll ask Katie to, try to push this as much as she can.
That's fine. I have a question. They said there's no harm.
Let me finish real quick. So I'll ask Katie to push this as far as she can, and then if she comes back and says we can't, then we'll accept the fact that we're gonna have to lose the
Yep.
trees. Fair?
Does this cost us money every time we do this? Are we budgeted to do all this, or does it matter?
She has an $18,000 budget to prepare this plan, and every estimate obviously is gonna cost us money, yes. And
Just wanna make
last
sure
time
we
I
have
talked
the
to her, we were within budget. I think we had a $14,000 that we
Okay,
had
so
spent.
we still have money to
We're probably
do the
getting
final
close,
thing.
though.
Okay.
She's also, real quick, she's also going to provide us next meeting with a cost estimate for preparing architectural renderings, just the cost. So if that's something that we want to try to ask the Board of Selectmen for to help sell, we'll have that. Any other, so I'll ask her to do that.
I mean, yes, and I'm thinking it may be a trade-off because we're gonna have a cost for tree removal. Of how many trees?
True.
With the path? Because right now the path goes right through a whole bunch of the trees.
Okay, so I'll ask her for that. I'll ask her for the change in the location to the bandstand. And I don't think, I don't think there was any, the walking trail, right? In the budget, we have a walking trail made of asphalt, 6-foot wide asphalt, with the expectation that we were going to use it to drive trucks on to pick up trash. The feedback that I got was that we're adding with that's too much of a hard surface, that would be better if we had a smaller path that was permeable material, but still ADA compliant. How do you guys feel about that? Do you like the wider asphalt path? I don't think it's necessarily a must that we have to drive on it to get the trash necessarily. I think we could scrap that expectation. And if we do that, then I don't think we necessarily have to use the asphalt. And the good thing about switching over to a permeable material is that it'll be cheaper, right? So it's going from like,
I'd like to know whether there is a permeable material that is ADA compliant, that's all. We may make a decision and then find that we don't have a surface that
I'm hesitant to do
meets
this, but would that be something you'd be willing to do, or should I just ask Katie if she would probably know pretty quickly?
She would know more than I would.
Okay. So I'll ask Katie if, I'm sure there has to be. Are we in agreement that we'd want to switch the walking path from asphalt to a permeable material?
If it is ADA compliant.
Assuming that, right, it'd have to be.
And we keep it at 6 feet.
I don't know, would we I would say we would shrink it to 4 maybe. Would
Do
we
you need a
necessarily
car
need
on that?
6?
You don't need to drive back to the fields.
Even
the
at 6
6
feet,
feet-
we're not gonna be able to drive on anyway, so it's gonna be one wheel off, one wheel on, so
Yeah.
we might as well just kinda.
Yep.
And I was thinking that it would be bad if we ran over the irrigation stuff, but I don't think we would have that issue necessarily.
But 6 feet allows people to walk with friends as opposed to alone.
True, but it also adds more costs and hard space, so,
Would Katie be able to say what's really standard for, a sidewalk or a sort of broader sidewalk size? I have no idea
I
how.
think sidewalk is 4. I think that's the standard. I'm pretty sure 4 feet is kind of the
If it
standard for
allows
sidewalk.
a pair of people to walk comfortably side by side, or, a wheelchair and somebody walking next to it with somebody pushing the wheelchair, then
Okay.
that would be, again, ideal, since we're trying to make this accessible.
So we agree that we want to switch to permeable, and then the width, we would like to be ADA compliant and compatible for people to use, and we'll
Yeah.
defer to her recommendation? Okay.
I think not just wheelchairs, but I think of a lot of people who ambulate with crutches.
Yeah.
And those stick out to the sides, so that takes up a lot of walk space.
Are there any other comments on the site plan?
Yeah, I just have one. Can you go back to the picture of the other picture that shows the fields up next to the trees? What if the diamond number 2 is just rotated a little bit, and even if you couldn't take advantage of the 30 feet shift going across, if she could just move that 10 feet, I don't know, I still have Chris's concerns about, how much that's going to bring it uphill. But certainly, if you rotate the diamond, let's say, counterclockwise, just a few degrees, instead of having to sort of pawn it into the trees, it's going to, give you a little bit of room there, so at least you're not running out of the woods quite so much. It seems like a little bit of juggling might help.
Okay, so I'm going to ask her to make some adjustments to accommodate the trees.
Yeah.
Are you okay with any change in the orientation, slight changes in the orientation of the infields?
Yep, fine with that.
You're okay with that? So if it even gets switched a little bit, it's okay? Okay.
In terms of raising the elevation, is it just the little cross field being raised, or is it that whole plateau with the baseball fields?
They need to level it.
No, the baseball fields are also going to have to be leveled too, as well as the lacrosse field.
Okay.
Because right now, if you look where the existing soccer field is, which is basically where field 1 is, if you will, where the t-ball field is, it literally goes like this. It goes, there's like a 1.5 foot drop off right now. So they would have to level that anyway in order to make that.
So it would all be on the same elevation as the lacrosse field?
Well, I don't know if that's the case.
Yeah, there may be a hill in between lacrosse and baseball.
Correct, yep.
Because they're gonna need to grade somewhere. I don't think they're gonna be able to make it all
I
one
agree.
grade, yeah. But that's for smarter people than us to navigate how.
All right, any other comments or questions or requested changes for the site plan? I'm going to jump ahead, if you guys don't mind, to our next steps. So we've got a public input session scheduled for June 20th. It feels like to me that we have a couple more meetings in between being finished, at least. So I feel like we could attack this a couple different ways. We could keep the June 20th public input session and basically present something that we're kind of sure is going to be changed, or convert that over to another committee meeting and reschedule the public input session. Our deadline is that to get on the town meeting warrant article, we have to present to the Board of Selectmen no later than their August 21st meeting. They have 3 meetings in our window. They have a July 10th meeting, they have a July 31st meeting, and then they have the August 21st meeting. I feel like if we sort of wait until the August 21st meeting, that if we have some sort of problems, we're not going to have time to change, and then we're going to miss the whole warrant. So I was hoping that we could shoot for the July 31st meeting, right? If you guys agree with that. Which means that their report, you have to have all the materials and stuff to them by the Wednesday prior, which is the 26th. So our drop dead deadline theoretically, for having this done would be July 26th. And then I mentioned we have the public input session scheduled currently for the 20th, and then the site walk for the 24th. Looking at from today moving forward, we roughly have about 6 to 7 weeks. We've got the 4th in there too, so some of these weeks are going to be not work for folks. I feel like we need at least 2 more meetings we haven't even gotten into the budget presentation part yet. We've tried for the last 2 meetings. Are you guys comfortable going ahead and scheduling committee meetings? Do you want to keep the June 20th and then add another public input session?
What's the rule in the public input session? It has to be as we're done, or does it have to just be like we have a public input session somewhere late along in the process?
There's really no rules. So we could, another suggestion that I got from somebody was that we should, to sort of drive home the idea of the transparency, is that we should host sort of neighborhood meetings as well, and find people that would host these things and then invite their friends over to present the things that we're doing. So we could actually do multiple smaller public input sessions in addition to bigger public input sessions. I
We
think
don't
that-
have time. I've done that kind of thing for my synagogue. We don't have time for
Okay.
it.
So, do you guys want to reschedule the public input session, or do you want to have two public input sessions? So I think if we do to the 20th, we're definitely going to have changes to the plan afterwards.
Well, but that was my question. If we do a public input session, everybody comes, they give us our input, we listen to the input, we change the plan, can we just put the changes out on the website and do the master plan, or do we have to do another full public input session?
We can, it's just a matter of how dramatic the changes are afterwards. You know what I mean? Like,
I'd rather take my chances, just because we don't know what the public's gonna say, or if anybody's even gonna show up, number one, but how many
They'll
people are
show
gonna
up.
be there?
They're-
But,
yeah,
yeah,
They'll show up.
But if we if we don't have it and we do it in July and we get incredible feedback because the bathroom was too close to the house or whatever the reasoning is, we have to really reshift things. We're not gonna have time to shift them around, so that's
Okay.
my worry. I don't know what everybody else's thought is, so.
Yeah.
And then if we don't have dramatic changes from that point to the next one, we don't need to do another one, we just post the changes and we're done.
right.
So, I would vote,
Give people a little window to
yeah,
contact and provide
yeah,
objections.
yep, but I would
So,
vote.
so what I'm hearing you say is that you want to keep the June 20th and the June 24th site walk, and not schedule another public input session in July,
Unless needed.
unless needed. Okay, is that where everybody else is too?
So we're keeping the 20th as the public input?
I don't know, that's what I'm asking. Do you guys want to?
I think, yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
So we'll keep the plan things as they are. Do you want to go ahead and schedule meetings moving forward for the week of the 11th, 25th? I mean, do you want to go over we're not going to have time to go through the budget presentation parts tonight. I don't think, we're already at 9:30. Do you want to schedule another meeting for the 11th?
11th is Sunday. No, the week of the 11th you're talking about.
Next week's basically.
Next week, basically. This room is available Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday.
I have nothing in the evenings all week.
So are there any good days or
I can't do Wednesday.
no Wednesday?
I can't do Thursday, but I can, actually, you know what, I could do that anyway, so I'm not gonna say that now, I don't care. There.
So it sounds like Monday or Tuesday.
Monday or Tuesday would be ideal for me. Softball game, I don't care. Yep, Monday or Tuesday work for me. What are we
I
presenting?
might be on a baseball field, so I don't even know.
Yeah,
but-
Okay.
what are we presenting at the public input session? Is that?
So it'll be the site plan that we reviewed
Yep.
and then the document that we've been trying to get to for the last 2
That's what
meetings.
I'm asking. So we
Right.
definitely have to have my question for asking was, we definitely have to have a meeting before the public input session so we can get a
Right.
document together to present.
Correct.
Just making sure. Okay.
Well, the document I would say is 75% together. It just needs committee input.
Okay. Thank you.
So Monday or Tuesday, the 12th or the 13th, 7 o'clock, which is better for folks?
I can't say my home calendar's unfortunately at home. It's not on my phone. So I'll go with whatever everybody else says. I guess I have a small preference for Tuesday over Monday.
Okay.
Yeah,
Tuesday?
Tuesday.
Do we want to go ahead and schedule another meeting after the public input session, or you want to wait to see how things go? I mean, I would assume that there's going to be changes after the public input session. So that would be the week of the 25th.
Unfortunately, that week doesn't work well
Yeah, I have somebody in town that week, it's a really tough.
I'm thinking the July 4th week isn't going to work for folks, right? I have this room is available July 5th and July 6th.
I sadly have no life.
I'm not sure I'm in town.
Oh.
I have plans that are tentative for that week to potentially be away for that week.
Okay.
I have tentative plans for my daughter.
What about the week of July 9th? This room is available on the 12th and the 13th.
Unfortunately, I can't do those. I can do the 10th.
It's not available at the beginning of that week, though, no?
No, I don't have anything available on Monday or Tuesday, the 10th or the 11th. The following week, it's basically Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday. Any of those days, the 17th, 18th, 19th, or 20th. But then we're 1 week out from when the packet is due, so it actually might not be a bad week to meet.
I think you put that on there, and then if we need to squeeze one in, if everybody's okay with that, the week of the 17th, 18th, 19th, or 20th right now
Okay.
are all good for me. So if we put that on the calendar, and if we need to squeeze something else in, we
Can we
try.
go ahead and schedule a day,
Yeah.
Yeah,
which would be good for everyone?
Tuesday through Thursday is,
Yeah, Tuesday's fine with
Do you
me.
want to stick with Tuesday?
Yeah.
So that's Tuesday.
Tuesday the 18th?
July 18.
Yeah.
So I'm showing, we've got June 20th as our public input session, the 24th as the site walk.
We have
Um,
13th?
Before that, we have Tuesday, the 13th as our next committee meeting, and then in July, Tuesday, July 18th.
And then we have, our deadline is the 26th to have the information to the Board of Selectmen, our final recommendation. So we're going to cover off the plan in 24 minutes?
I was gonna say, next, can we just change the agenda next time to start with the plan, too? So we
Yeah,
don't
the
get,
problem is that we got to cover up on all this stuff, because all this stuff.
relates back to the plan.
Right. I mean, if you want, we can spend a few minutes going through what we have. We can just,
Sure.
so, these are all the setup. So the way it's set up is we have sort of the background and history, sort of why we came together and what we are trying to accomplish. This is all the people that have worked on the project. This is just a description of all the stuff that we've done. Our key project goals, you guys can go through these on your own, but we tried to sort of rewrite these into what we've talked about. Our survey results, the things that we've learned. This is just a list of all of the features that we evaluated, and if we accepted them or rejected them, and sort of a very quick why or why not. This will be the final master plan site drawing. This will end up being our projected budget, and we can spend a little bit of time here now. So right now, we're between $755,000 and $923,000. Right, this includes that $100,000 to $130,000 in dredging costs, so that actually kicked it up quite a bit. The natural playground, we can look at some of the details, but I've included the percentages, 'cause I think it kind of helps people to see where the money's going. Project timetable, this is sort of speculative, because I haven't gotten any information back from the Board of Selectmen or the town manager exactly on how they're planning to do it. But, you know, if we can get it through CPC funds, and they've committed to giving us feedback on that. So they'll help us more with this than we are doing our own. Trying to include information on the impact to abutters, the park usage information, we can add in the stuff that we talked about with the counters, and the noise information. Trying to put some information around how it's going to impact park usage. Steve still owes us a effect on drainage, which all the fill and stuff is going to affect.
Can I ask a question about the usage?
Yes.
Do we have estimated numbers of attendees at the band concerts?
Like a few hundred audience.
Yeah, it might be helpful to have that just as part of the usage impact.
I don't know how, it's hard to compare the two areas, being right on the common versus out in front.
Could we do could you guys do kind of a rough head count, you think?
We'll try to do that.
Okay.
That,
Maybe over just the first two, and we can just average the two? It'll give us an idea at least. So just a slide to talk about the maintenance, and then specifically responsibilities. Our recommendations, that goes back to the stuff we've talked about of the stakeholders having MOUs, adopting the goals and all the stuff that we talked about. And then who's going to maintain what? So this gets into the specifics. Can't read any of this. So the larger natural playground, so just the structure component of it is 250 to 275. So I think in looking at what the other quote was, I think we need to increase that from closer to 300, maybe to 300 to 325, because their total was at 308.
Yeah, minus the 21 for the bottom, but plus the ramp, so yeah, that's fine.
So I'm looking to increase that. In this playground budget, I've got $9,000 to $15,000 for landform creation, and that's from, these costs are either from Steve or from us, so that's where it's going to go. The interior permeable path, we talked about changing that to the poured-in-place cost. And roughly what I did, just to be able to include a budget number, was I took a north to south, east to west linear feet, and that's how I got to that.
What did you use for linear footage that we were going to cover, by the way? 1,200 or 12?
Interior permeable path,
1,200.
4 feet wide, 400 feet long.
Yeah, so it's 1,200.
So it's top to bottom, left to
Yep.
right. The poured rubber surface was 1,200 square feet, which was roughly an eighth of the,
1,600, not 14. Okay.
what's 1,600?
When you say you figured 4 by 400, is the,
What number do you want me to use for the, I can use 16. Do you want me to use 16?
well, is that the number or the total linear feet is what I'm confused over?
So the poured-in-place rubber would be to
The
go under a surface,
Just the number that you're using, are you referring?
1,200.
But she was talking, it does, I don't think it matters that much. There was the one before it, she was talking
Oh,
about.
the path?
Yeah.
400 linear feet.
400 linear feet, okay,
He figured 100 feet of path at 4,
okay.
or whatever it was.
400 linear feet of
Yeah,
path,
yeah.
just to be able to put a budget number in. The playground fencing, the perimeter playground fencing, and that number came from Katie, so I feel pretty good about that number. The playground structures, the shade structures, picnic tables, playground benches, the information kiosk that would have the scavenger hunt and the rules and stuff, garbage cans, and then a garden on the outside, which I got the cost from Weston on, and then some maintenance costs for wood chips and stuff like that. Is there anything missing from there that we have talked about that needs to be added in?
Small item, but the porta potty rental?
That's in a different budget. It's a
Okay.
different budget. Okay, well, if you think of anything, let me know. Athletic fields, we've got 15 to 18 for the lacrosse field, 48 to 51 for the 2 baseball fields, and that does include the new roofs and concrete footers. Let me ask you a quick question. Would it be appropriate to replace the concrete with a permeable path, just a permeable surface?
Yeah, I mean, we can.
Is that something that you would normally see in a dugout? Like, I don't want to cheapen it or dumb it down, but I mean, if people are complaining that
My
it's too many-
concern would be just, as you look today, it's just all dirt there. So then it just when the rain comes, it just winds up being all mud in there, and, the kids have,
So if you use stone dust, it would just fill with dirt, is what you're saying?
yeah.
Well, the kids would kick it around, they'll make,
Yeah.
they'll make
Actually-
divots
I
with the
I
feet.
see
It's
feet going
probably
like
better
this all
to
the
just be a
time.
hard surface.
Keep it
And then
concrete.
we don't have to ever do anything with
Where
it.
concrete would hold up a lot better.
Right.
and then-
Okay. It's got the storage shed, the irrigation system, garbage bins, and then the maintenance for the fertilization program. And that's a number from Steve. I think that covers everything, right? If it doesn't, if you think of everything else. The pondside pavilion, that's the pavilion, the picnic tables. Bubblers, do you want, you had mentioned that you wanted bubblers on the, I'm looking at you, Adele, on the pavilions. Is that something that's still important?
It's important to have a water source somewhere in terms of the park.
Okay.
And the state is making it a priority, so I think if, we should be making it a priority as well.
Do we want bubblers on both? Because it's about $1,000 to put one on the pond side because it's close to the garage. But if we put it on the other side, it's going to be a lot more expensive because you have to run the water line literally across the field. So it's like $1,000 versus $7,500.
On the other hand, which part of the park gets the most usage?
The playground side, so you want to keep the $7,500? You think you can justify that cost? Think about it and let me know.
I'm thinking about what if we put the bubbler at the welcome site?
Still gotta run.
It's still on the other side. So the cheapest option is to keep it on the pond side, close to the garage.
But can we just simply run a new line from the street instead of,
No, because you need all the, whatever the thing is that measures the water meter thing and all the stuff to regulate the flow. Think about it, let me know.
would it be more expensive to dig a well?
Think about it, let me know. So the bandstand, we've got the larger bandstand, picnic tables, we've got the bubbler in here at 7,500, and then the garbage bin.
We should ask, have you seen the picture of the bandstand?
Yeah.
Okay, just making sure. Yeah.
And I don't know that
That's
it'll
good
look
for you,
like
right?
that necessarily, but
great.
in that sort of style.
Ideal for us.
Okay, just, so we're on the right track.
The walking trail, we talked about changing it from asphalt to the permeable material, and then I'll talk to Katie about a recommendation for the width. We also have the permeable, the two additions, the one pond side and then the one in the forest. The circuit machines, we have the 6 existing, and we repair 2 of those and then add in 4 new stations that would specifically benefit seniors. And then rubber mats for each station. I added in roughly 2 mats per station. It's like 6 by 6, I believe. And I don't know if each one would take 2, but at least it gives us a number to work with. The portable bathroom enclosure, this is where the cost of the porta potty rental would be. You've got the shade structure, garbage bins, 2 handicap portable bathrooms, and then a bike rack, and the cost of the rental. The hardscape play area, we've got the basketball court, the cost of the additional asphalt, signage, park rules. I think we'll need to put some sort of a sign there for to talk about vehicle access, right? Because that's going to be our vehicle access point. So to keep people from driving out on the field, we'll need to say, whatever, by permit only or whatever that language is. But the park rules sign. And you had talked before about it being kind of a neat idea to do a mural for the garage, but rather than doing that, what about doing for the games, having the art school paint fireman themed games on the on the asphalt part. So if it's like hooks and ladders or, you know, foursquare with hoses or something, right?
Yeah.
So just tie that whole area together with the fire station. Yeah. The upper and lower parking lot, we have 93 spaces now. They're going to be adding up to 130, well, it'll be a total of 113. And then we have that land bank that we talked about on the lower part of 4 new spaces. So we have new painted lines, not the expensive heat sealed stuff. New wooden guardrails that will be stained white. We'll keep the same field access, and then the hydroseeded plants that we talked about, the flowering meadows that we talked about. And then the existing sign that sits in the middle of the field is, it's all flaky and needs to be replaced. So I included the cost of that as well in there.
Let me quick comment about the parking deck. I made this to you earlier, but I noticed that the plan has the parking spaces perpendicular, whereas today they're angular. I almost drove into somebody the other day coming out, but even when they are today.
I asked the same question. She said there's plenty of room, but I don't buy it either.
Yeah, I would want angled.
Well, let's go out with a measuring tape. There's
So
something.
how do you want to handle that then? Do you want to?
I'm not the designer, but I just don't, you drive in there more than I do. Do you see people backing in and out of each space? On the top. The bottom's fine. The bottom, there's more than enough room. The top is the
Yeah,
concern. It seems narrow. It seems very narrow to me.
very, very tight in there even today.
Yeah, that's what I think. I think you lose spaces though. If we keep them diagonal, you lose spaces, but
I thought you could fit more.
You can fit more with straight lines than you can the slanted, which it's slanted now.
I mean, you're already picking up spots. I like the slanted idea at the top.
It's not just the room per se,
Yeah.
but it's just much harder to turn 90 degrees in.
Yeah.
Than
Yeah.
when you just have to angle it. a
Yeah,
little
no,
bit.
I like the idea of
Yeah.
keeping the top layer diagonal. I asked the specific question and she said, nope, we checked, it's plenty, but I don't buy it either. I think it's a tight parking lot. I think you're gonna run into problems, but
So I see one that wants to keep it slanted. What do you guys feel?
I would as well.
It's going to cost parking spaces.
Which could be a problem at the band concerts. So if there's a couple hundred people that would be coming to the band concerts, we don't know yet in the new venue who would be coming, but we may want to
there's,
preserve as many as we can. If technically the measurements say there is technically enough room, we may feel it's tight, but if there's technically enough room, we might want to go with that, with what she's proposing.
I'm worried technically enough room, yes, a good driver can get in and out, but it's a playground. There's kids, you have the consideration that you not only need to get in and out, you need to get in and out without hitting the kids, and I don't know. I look at it, I don't like it, but
How many, I don't know how many we lose if we go.
yeah, it would.
Yeah,
There's a
how many
safety
would we lose?
visibility here too. I mean, when you go down to the grocery store and you back out, it's hard to see sometimes when you're backing straight,
Yeah.
you know? And I'm always worried about running over somebody or hitting somebody, and this is tighter than that.
All right, so I'll ask her how many we lose, and then we can make a decision.
Yeah, if it's less than 5 or 10, I'd
Let's,
say we go with that.
we'll see what it comes back. So since the last time we've spoken, this is the driveway area. You can see that this is basically just to repair this swale right here, and then this head wall for that swale that comes off of the pond, and then to repair the drainage here for the back of the fire station. So what'll happen here is that there'll be a drainage area added. This will all be drained out into a rain garden. So we took out the granite curbing, so this is significantly less money now than it was. So it's like $2,000 to $3,000. The Parks Garage, this is including repairing the roof, adding the interior partitions, adding a gutter that would drain off into the back to feed a garden back here, and to grade and seed around the seed with grass seed around the outside of the perimeter of the garage, and then to add that garden. The park welcome community area. We've got the cost of the covered bridge for the store. a stone marker with the Roberts Field carved into it, with stone seating, probably half that amount. This meditation labyrinth, and then some sort of an informational kiosk, and then the garden or the thing. All good with that?
So Bill, I'm sorry, I've forgotten now, the covered bridge, there was some discussion last time that that's not town property, that it would go over?
It's half and half, so it would require that the new owner would have to participate in,
Okay, and there'll be a line in here someplace that says that?
yes.
Or maybe I'm just overlooking it
Joint
now.
approval, joint
Oh, right,
project
right,
approval
okay,
with the
there we
butter in
go.
town.
Okay, okay, sure.
So we're good with this one?
Yeah.
Natural park area, this is a big ticket item now since we've added the dredging. So the dredging's $100,000 to $130,000. The 2 pond fountains, which I'm gonna bring down to 1, is that what we agreed? And then I'll also add in another option of the bubble tubes. Small directional signage to say where the trails are. The nature walk scavenger hunt that we looked at earlier. A flashboard type water dam to keep some of the water from moving out of the pond, to keep the levels higher. The pondside rain garden coming off of the drainage that we talked about earlier. That the Thule Green Giant arborvitae for the sound mitigation is in here for the playground, and then just a line item for bittersweet removal.
Sure.
And safety improvements, installing security cameras, and then putting the utilities underground. And then just next steps.
Can we go back to where the irrigation costs are? Do you have irrigation?
Yes, it's in athletic fields.
So if they're moving water over for irrigation for athletic fields, then we're
They
not,
were tapping their own well, and it was gonna be a,
It's a well. It's not drinkable though.
okay. Moving the water over is 1% of the budget. I think there's an argument that for the health and safety of people in the parks, that it's good to have potable water where they are.
So we've got the $7,500. We've got the bubbler on the community bandstand now. So it's just we'll need to justify the cost.
I'd swap the fountain for the bubbler, the
Yeah.
pond fountain. Take it out.
Yeah,
It's either or.
I do think the bubbler's more important than,
Okay. Any other questions on those things, or additions, or deletions, or anything? No? And then we just have a bunch of the appendix slides, which is really the detail of survey questions, comments from public input sessions, who we've talked to, who we've reached out to, the usage stuff that we gathered from lacrosse and baseball. This slide will come out, well, I'll add the results of the traffic study from the police, but we won't do a playground usage survey per se. The bandstand stuff, we'll add this in, have the rough head counts, and then what we already have in here. Safety responses, just how many calls the police and the fire have provided. The stuff that we use to make our choices. This is the park inventory, so this will need to be updated if we end up losing or taking out some of those trees. The guidelines that we put forth and talked about. The bittersweet control that we talked about earlier. Definition of what a natural playground is. A comparison of what other Chelmsford parks have cost and been spent on. And then the cost of what the stakeholders will receive, and then where we think that there may be some opportunity to fundraise or cost share for the next committee. And then something someone asked for, an estimated, they wanted a detailed maintenance plan, and this is as close as I think I could get, at least. It identifies the different park features, who's going to maintain it, the estimated lifespan, useful life of each of the features, and then what types of maintenance would be required. So at least it shows that we've put some thought into how it's going to be maintained, how long it's going to be there, what we'll have to do to take care of it. And then just a slide for Matty flights. It just said that we've looked at that and we've accommodated for that. Wow, we got through it.
Great, Phil.
If you don't want to add pages, I can understand, what you could do is you could put in footers in the appendices, just indicate which appendix you're.
That's a great idea, yeah, I'll do that.
Do that,
Okay.
because I noticed in the earlier part of the document, you're making references to the appendix, and people don't want to flip through.
Right.
Otherwise
Make it
they
easy.
won't know where they are.
What do we need for the?
Do we have anything about universal design for the playground and accessibility for all?
I need information from you about ADA compliance, and I need you to go through this and to add in ADA information where it should be.
Don't forget, ADA is different, that's just looking at the kids, whereas the universal design is, bringing in.
So if you'd like to take
Parents and caregivers.
if you want to take a crack at this, we could change this slide from what is a natural playground to, what's the concept that we're saying, and then define a natural playground and define the universal playground as well. So if you
Okay.
wouldn't mind doing that, that would be very helpful.
Okay. I will put it together, but you'll have to put it into PowerPoint.
That's fine. Yeah, just whatever the information is that you want, I can add it in and
Okay.
format it. Is there anything else that's missing from here that you think? And to answer your earlier question, I think we present this and the site plan, and that should be.
That's gonna take up plenty of time. What do we need? I know you had that card you wanted to send out with the information that we were having in a public session. Is that already in the works? Because we probably can't wait till our next meeting to decide to do that.
So,
Can we just get that done?
Yeah, we agreed that I think that the format of what we looked at last time
It
was
was fine
okay.
with everybody, I think.
The only change is going to be that unless Katie can make the changes to the plan that we've asked for, like by Monday, I'm going to have to revise the front of the card. If she can make the changes by Monday, I'm going to take the revised plan and just pop that in and it's ready to go. And the town manager has, the printer's given the town manager an invoice to approve, so we should be all set with that.
Okay, well, for the revised plan, can we just ask her to just move the bandstand and not worry about the trees yet, and then worry about that for our next one for the meeting? Because that's going to take a lot more effort.
Right.
To move all the fields and tweak versus just moving that one item down.
Sure, that's a good idea. Okay. Any other comments? Questions? Thank you. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Please, yes.
A motion.
Second.
Thank you very much. Meeting adjourned.